Okay. So then we shall begin. Firstly, my apologies that it might be quite warm in this room. The aircon has failed, so that's why we've got two fans. If you do feel too hot, then you know, and you need to leave the room for a moment, then that's fine. Obviously, we've got a water dispenser here too, so make sure your water is topped up. Okay. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to today's meeting of the Children and Adults Health and Wellbeing Policy Development and Scrutiny Panel. My name is Dina Romero. I'm a councillor in Southdown, and I also have the joy of chairing this panel. I'm just going to introduce my panel to everyone, but if you're then speaking, you know, at whichever report or agenda item, then please introduce yourself then. Thank you. So, as I said, my name is Dina Romero, and I'll now pass over to Liz.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Liz Hardman. I'm Vice Chair of this committee. I also represent Porton.
Michael?
I'm Michael Orton. I'm the Ward Councillor for Midsummer Norton North.
David?
David Harding. I represent the Chew Valley Ward.
Cool.
Paul Crossley, Southdown.
Barrett? Can you...
Stopped working. It was working. Good morning. I'm Barrett Pankania, representing Coomdown Ward.
Welcome, Barrett. Leslie?
Good morning. My name's Leslie Mansell, and I represent Radstock.
And Kevin?
Good morning. Kevin Burnett, Professional Association representative for the NEHT and a non-voting member of the panel.
Christopher Batten, representing Teachers National Education Union, non-voting member.
Thank you, Chris. Karina?
Karina Haskins from Democratic Services.
And last but not least, Kerry.
Morning, I'm Kerry Williams and I provide the Scrutiny Officer support to the panel.
Thank you. Have I missed anybody from the panel? I don't think so. Okay. Right, so without further ado, we move on to the emergency evacuation procedure.
Thank you, Chair. If the continuous alarm sounds, you must evacuate the building and proceed to the assembly point. From this room, you follow the illuminated green signs to the exit using either the marble staircase at the end of the building nearest to Bath Abbey or the main staircase. Please do not use the lifts. And the assembly point for this building is in Orange Grove on the green outside Brown's Restaurant. Thank you.
Thank you, Karina. Apologies for absence and substitutions.
Yes, apologies from Councillor Joanna Wright and Councillor Onkar signing.
Thank you very much. Do we have any declarations of interest? Liz?
I don't think this is a declaration of interest, but just in case, when our speakers speak about St Michael's musical project, I have visited the school and witnessed what happens in the school itself, and I've been present at workshops last Friday week, and I've seen what goes on. So if I'm overly enthusiastic, it will explain why.
I don't think anyone minds a little bit of enthusiasm. Okay. So I have no urgent business to announce, but I would like just to stress that because we've got the two fans on, can everyone make sure that they speak into the microphones? And if you are no longer speaking, could you turn your microphone off, because the camera follows the on speaker. So, but if you don't wish to be viewed on the camera, because this meeting is being filmed and will be webcast, then would you also indicate as well? I apologise. Felt like a very confusing way of saying all the things I meant to say. Okay. Right. So now we move on to the items from the public. So we have two speakers, and I'm just hoping that my computer's tuned up sufficiently now that I can tell you. I think you were going to speak first, weren't you? So if you'd like to introduce yourself, that would be wonderful.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Becky Meller. I am the very proud head of school of St Michael's Junior School, which is based in Twerton. St Michael's serves an area of very high social and financial deprivation, as I'm sure you are aware. However, I do not consider our children to be deprived, rather that they are underserved. We seek to make up the shortfall as part of our work that we do as our school, as an offer to every single child at St Michael's. Part of what we offer is opening up the world of music to our children and their families with the Orchestra of Everything Foundation. Fridays is Music Day at St Michael's, and the whole school rings out with music for the whole day long. From whole class recorder sessions and ukulele lessons to whole school singing, and more than 80% of our entire school also learns an individual instrument. So they either have small group tuition sessions or they are one-to-one with teachers, which is an incredible offer for so many of our families without a charge to them. We're seeing wide-ranging benefits that have really taken me by surprise over the last year and a bit, not only in music, but also the increased resilience that we're seeing from the children that are receiving these amazing music lessons. Their confidence is just going from strength to strength, and we're seeing them willing to try new things, not just in music, but across the entire curriculum, whereas this point last year, we were really finding ways to make the children want to be more resilient and to have a go at things that they were finding challenging. Our teachers at school have developed amazing skills and confidence in delivering music lessons as well. Victoria Robinson, who also works at Oldfield Senior School as the head of music, comes in and delivers lessons, and then on alternate weeks the teachers also teach those lessons themselves. So with Victoria's amazing guidance, the teachers are building their own confidence too. We prioritise the children's opportunity to rehearse their music. So we have an after-school club that John runs. One of our TAs who plays violin runs after-school clubs for children, teaching them and practising their violin skills. And then within school time as well, we also prioritise rehearsal time. This is an intervention that is just as important as maths and reading and the other interventions that we do, and we make sure that it is prioritised. Music is helping our children to thrive at St Michael's. We need your help to prioritise it too. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sure that leads seamlessly into John's speech.
Yes, hello, I'm John Gore. I'm the founder of the Orchestra of Everything Foundation. The first thing to emphasise is all of this only happens because we pay our teachers to come in every Friday. So it is entirely 100% dependent. I run a whole network of community orchestras and noticed over the last 10 years that all of our members were those who had been able to afford music lessons ever since they were young. Right from the start, we were agonising over how do we access these children that haven't had that opportunity. And that's how this charity came about. So we managed to secure a little bit of start-up funding to run 2 pilots, a small-scale pilot at St Andrews Primary School just up the road, and our biggie, our large-scale pilot. 90% of our effort goes into St Michael's, where we're working with the whole school. We started offering the whole class recorder lessons and then opened up the opportunity to children to learn one of, at that point, 6, but now 10 other instruments. So we cover the whole orchestra. And from a standing start, within a month, 65% had signed up. We would have expected a tail off of some form. It's not happened. Nobody's dropping out. More and more are joining us, so we've reached that 80% figure that Becky mentioned. It's now up 82 or 83% of the school are learning those instruments with us and receiving all those benefits. And it goes beyond the school. So the police early intervention team have contacted us, and they want to work with us with their 11-year-olds, 11 to 13-year-olds. They came in to see us at work, and were just commenting on how happy the children were when they were participating in music, how focused they were. They want us to work with them in their violence reduction partnership. They see music as part of the solution. We didn't set out to do this on the cheap. We set out to be responsive and adaptable to what works for the children, but we are incredibly good value for money. Our costs are £12 per week per child. So if anyone here has had a child learning an instrument, they will know that's ridiculously cheap. You know, the music service would charge double that for a half-hour lesson. And this £12 covers a wide range of musical activity that they're doing. But because of our success getting the children hooked in, that quickly multiplies up to £50,000 for the year at St Michael's, plus £7,000 at St Andrews. So our costs to stand still and continue doing what we are doing are just under £60,000 for the year. We also want to start working with the Year 7 children for the reasons that the police have identified. Round Hill Primary School, in a similar area of disadvantage or similar underserved area, are ready to go. The moment we get the funding, they are ready for us to launch the programme with them. We're getting very high profile. We're getting a massive amount of recognition. The BBC came in to film us. ITV filmed us last month, and there's an 8-minute video on us on their website. Vera Hobhouse came in. She is now a patron. Bath Spa bring in their teacher trainees, because we are a model of how to deliver music education. We've won a Bath Life Award. So we're getting all the recognition, but it's not been unlocking the doors to funding yet. So this is our appeal to you. We are funded until the end of November. So what that means is this week I need to go and tell our teachers that we can't guarantee them a whole term of work after September. So that puts our team at risk. It means that when we start in September, it's heartbreaking, but we're going to have to start looking at which children we are going to stop working with unless we're able to secure some more funding. So this is our appeal to you. If you believe that this is important and this is valuable and this is high impact, then unlock routes to funding for us. Introduce us to people. I know we met Paul in January. We were talking about Wessex Water. We were talking about Curo. We were talking about St John's Foundation. Set up the meetings for us. Come with us to those meetings. Bang the drum for us. Tell people how high impact and how important this work is. And help us carry on delivering music to these children. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know whether if Councillor May wants to come in at this point, but we would also like, if you're happy to ask you some questions as well. So, Councillor May, and you could also tell us who you are.
Thank you. I'm Councillor May. I'm a councillor for Pensfield and Whitchurch Village. And I've been dealing with John, and I think his...
You're the Cabinet Member.
Oh, I'm the Cabinet Member for Children's Services, sorry. I've been dealing with John for a little while, and I think what he's doing is groundbreaking. So I've listened again to his presentation around funding, etc., and I'll take that away and see what can be done about it, because I think it's transformational certainly in St Michael's, but it has a model which could be developed into other schools in the area. But how we do that, it's obviously with tight budgets, etc. We've got to think that through, and it's also difficult mid-year to do that. But I'll be picking that up and following that through, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paul. So from the floor, I've got Barrett and then Liz and then Michael.
Thank you. I'm really pleased to hear what Councillor May has just said. In my capacity as Mayor of Bath, I met with the team here, as well as your bigger team, Voices for Life. And with my public health medicine professorial hat on, I know that the impact of what they are doing is tremendous. And we need to recognize this, especially as you said, these are underserved communities. What I just want to say in very short is I'm pleased to hear what Councillor May has said, and we have the expertise to make the introductions, and we will accompany them. I will accompany you if you need us with my mayoral hat on and help you, because I think this is a really good, important thing to be doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Barrett. Liz.
Thank you. Rebecca, I think you omitted to say that something like over 70% of children at St Michael's are in receipt of free school meals, and we've been told that the gap between free school meals and those not in receipt of free school meals is widening. We've also been told, the research has shown, that it's outside things that matter, like music lessons. So this is where something is being brought within the school, which is music lessons, which add value. And I think also she omitted to say that the attendance had improved, especially on a Friday when the music lessons actually take place. So with all that background, I think we as a panel ought to make a proposal, if that's okay, Chair, of how to move forward, because this is a fantastic project that's happening within St Michael's, and how learning, being happy, being supported, moving on, and we hope breaking that gap between attainment for children on free school meals will happen. But I've got a couple of questions, and I'll wait till the end in case anyone hasn't asked some of the questions I want to ask. But firstly, if you run out of money, which parts of the project could the school keep going? That's my first question. And what's the magic ingredient here? Why is the impact bigger than any other way of teaching and learning, especially for music, both teaching and learning?
Thank you, Liz. In terms of what we do in school already, I would say that the impact of the work with Orchestra of Everything Foundation has been that confidence in building the teachers' skills up. So if we were not to have the foundation working with us, the teachers now have much greater skills and confidence to be able to keep things going. What we would not be able to do in any way is the tuition, the individual tuition for instruments, and that's the area where the children are really growing in their confidence and resilience. So without the support from the foundation, we would really struggle to be able to have anywhere near the amount of impact that we are currently having. So there are elements that we would be able to continue, but it would not have anywhere near the same amount of impact at all. And I've completely forgotten your second question, sorry.
What is the magic ingredient that actually makes the children do so well in their learning?
I don't think it's as simple as there being one magic ingredient. I think it is a combination of the staff that the foundation appoints, the volunteers that are also working with them, the enthusiasm that we see from the children, their families and our staff. All of that combined makes it into a magical potion. So there's not one special ingredient that makes it work. I genuinely feel as though the investments that we give to the work of the foundation makes a big difference as well. John turns up and has an amazing idea and says, can we do this? I say yes, and then we figure out how to make it happen. I think me saying yes to these things does make a big difference to us being able to make a difference to the children. So for this to be able to be rolled out, the people in charge at the schools need to be fully behind it. They need to see the impact. We welcome people pretty much every week into school, because until you are there seeing what difference it makes, I think it's really difficult to really understand what impact it actually has. You've come to visit our school, Liz. You know what it feels like on that Friday. So we are very open to welcoming people in to see what it's like, whether that's people from here or from different schools, wherever they may be, to come and see what is magical. And I am a bit biased because I think that St Michael's is a magical place to be as well. I've worked at that school for 21 years. It runs through the very veins of me. I think it's a special place, and it's even more special because of the work the foundation does with us.
Huge, thank you.
Thank you. I'm not sure who was more enthusiastic then. Sorry, John.
Can I just add to that no school has the capability to deliver specialist music lessons. So the independent schools will bring in peripatetic teachers. So it's exactly that sort of model. So you wouldn't expect any school to be able to take over what we do, apart from, as Becky said, some of the whole class lessons, which is a small percentage of the budget, is on the whole class lessons. Having Victoria, our head of music, in alternating weeks is a small cost, but for that we get the ongoing CPD. So if a member of staff leaves, or if a new member of staff joins, we have that ongoing professional development and quality assurance as well. And what else was I going to say? The magic ingredient, as Becky has said, is her support. We are totally embedded in the school. Every week there are examples of a child not being engaged or something going wrong, and we instantly go into the office and we say, what's going on with this child, or what's going on? So it's beyond any other music offer in any other school that we can address things ongoing, week by week. We move children around into different groups if they're not working together. Just that level of access means that we can be so responsive on a week-by-week basis. I think that's part of the magic.
Thank you, John. Michael.
A couple of questions I wanted to ask. In previous roles that I've had, I've been fundraising for a number of different music charities, including Wiltshire Rural Music, and I worked with them for about 5 years. And one of my questions was, I know that one of the hurdles to learning music is having access to instruments and having an opportunity to try different instruments, and not even know, everyone's played the recorder at some point in their life of growing up at school, but there is life beyond the violin and a recorder. So I was fortunate when I was at school to play trombone for 7 years. Very badly, but I still managed to play it and enjoy it. But so having access to musical instruments is really key, and I know that Wiltshire Rural Music had instruments that people could borrow, so that children had opportunity of trying out different things, and I don't know whether that's something that your organisation or through the school has been done, and it might be, and I have a trombone still up in my loft that I'm not using, and I'd be happy to donate it to the school, so at least it's actually being used, because all it's doing is taking up loft space at the moment. So, and there may be other people out there that have instruments that they don't need, and if it was given to to a cause that was going to make a difference, then that was my main question, is actually, do you have access to instruments, and how you might go about changing that?
Yeah, thank you. Orchestral instruments are provided by the music service, by the local music hub. They have rejigged their processes for us because they have quite a bureaucratic process where it's very dependent on the parents, and we know in a lot of cases that the parents will not navigate their way through that. So the Music Hub has set up a special process where the school can have an agreement and we can advocate for the children and we can organise it. We need to collect the instruments back in July, so we need to take them from the children. So any instrument donations are greatly appreciated. I've put that call out to our orchestras as well. Electronic instruments we provide ourselves through donations, or a keyboard on eBay is only £40. In a small number of cases, the parents can stretch to that as a one-off cost, but where they can't, then we provide that as well.
Okay, this last year I would happily work with Councillor May in helping to support what you're doing, and I'm a North East Somerset councillor from Midsummer Norton. I'm sure we could find a school in Midsummer Norton or Radstock or Poulton area that maybe we could use it for a trial, do be another St Michael's in our area, if that would help as well. But, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so my list now is Chris and Leslie, Paul, and then Barrett. Okay, so Chris.
Just to say that I would support any music in schools because it will benefit everybody else. Children just respond to music, and therefore this is a brilliant idea, and the more that can do it, I'm sure it will increase our standards behaviour, and there's such a large knock-on effect of music in schools. So please, can we try and get it into as many schools as possible?
Thank you, Chris. I don't think that was a question, but thank you. A really good, lovely supporting statement. Leslie. No.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. It's very interesting. I was very fortunate because I went to a school where the music teacher ran an orchestra after school as well as during the school hours. And this was for any child that had an interest in a musical instrument. And if you said anything like, I'd blown a recorder once, you were in. So you didn't have a lot of choice. But that orchestra is still running. She passed away just 2 years ago in the 90s. And it benefited so many of the young people that came out of that council estate. One of them went on to sing in the Doyley Cart, not my preference. Another went and played for the Halley Orchestra. So who knows where you can go if you start with music. And I think some of the benefits that you've talked about are only a very few. There is an article by Michael... Michael Matthews, who points out 18 benefits of playing a musical instrument. Some results are showing that playing an instrument can help your IQ increase by 7 points. It can increase your maths ability. It improves your cognitive skills. It teaches you team skills. So many things, but do have a look at that. It's a really interesting article. It's just sad and really not to the benefit of children in the school that many schools don't provide that music anymore. So it's great to hear about this project. With regards to should Bain support it, yes, I think absolutely they should, especially in this school where those children have probably got less opportunities, but this could give them more opportunities. There are some music charities that may be able to help. Generally, they provide support for instruments, which is not necessarily entirely what you want, is it? You want the running costs. And I know Carlos Santana has a foundation called the Milagro, don't get that mixed up with anything else, foundation, and they provide money internationally to non-profit making organisations. So your charity may be able to look into that. There's also things like Quartet locally that might help, and there's a national lottery. And I think the other thing is, if you're getting traction in the media, then there must be local people who are involved in music nationally. I think Peter, oh crikey, what was his name? He played in Genesis and he lives at Box. Peter Gabriel. I mean, if you could contact somebody like that and get them to start spearheading your campaign for you and bring in other people as well. I think the London Philharmonic did some outreach work as well, so it's probably having a look a bit wider to see what you might be able to bring in, but good luck, and I fully support it. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think there was anything to respond to there, apart from smiling and nodding. So, fantastic. Paul and then Barrett.
Thank you. My question is, you'll be in a particular MAT. What is the policy of your MAT in general, and how is the policy of music in other MATs, as far as you're aware, to music in education?
So we are part of the Bath and Wells Multi-Academy Trust. It is a very large multi-academy trust, and recently won an award for being the best large MAT in the UK, which they're very proud about. Our school is a little bit of an outlier within the trust, I have to say. So the majority of the schools that are in our trust are in much more affluent areas with many more supportive parents and carers compared to our school. We kind of stick out like a sore thumb. The trust, however, do recognise the work that we do for our children. They are not prescriptive in saying that we must teach this lesson on this day at this time, which I know some multi-academy trusts like to do with their schools. They recognise our context and they support the work that we do to provide opportunities for all of our children. So while there isn't a specific music policy, They have a music subject lead network where all of the subject leads get together and talk about curriculum and what can be done to support the children learning music. The level of support, though, practical support, is very little. They're more strategic level, thinking about curriculum rather than thinking about what could feasibly be done to get these children into music more. And the focus tends to be more on the curriculum side of things rather than anything additional. So the work that we're doing with the instrument tuitions doesn't fall under the remit of the trust. They don't really have any part to play in that. I don't know much about how other trusts, particularly local trusts, run their music offer, but it's not very much talked about. I have to say the focus, and unfortunately it feels as though the focus seems to be swinging back towards outcomes, Key Stage 2 tests, data, and that purely focuses on maths, reading, punctuation, grammar and writing. Music does not form part of that offer. The new Ofsted framework, which is coming in November, now has returned to an entire section on data, which we had moved away from. Things have started to kind of swing in the opposite direction, and it feels very much as though we're going back to this very data-driven, the only thing that's important is reading, writing and maths, which we know for our children is not true at all. It is important, but it's not the only thing that is important. So we want to keep it going. We want to offer that really balanced, broad curriculum for all of our children, and like Leslie was saying, to give them opportunities that they might not otherwise get. But it doesn't feel like it's a priority from the government at the moment.
Yes, of course.
Is this concentration on a few core subjects, is that a general problem in schools generally, or just in your maths?
So, Paul, is your microphone on, Paul?
Sorry.
Can you ask that question again, just for the webcast?
Is this concentration on government-defined outcomes a problem generally across education, or is it a feature of your MAT that they're concentrating on government regulations rather than these additional bonuses that have other benefits?
It is not something that is just our MAT, and actually I would say that our MAT it doesn't have as big a priority on those test outcomes as other MATs I know of. I would say that this is the outcome of an inspection framework and a government that is leading us towards reading, writing and maths being the only things that they see are worthy outcomes. It's the thing that is tested, and I know that some schools will plough everything into the thing that is measured because they see that as their way of showing their value and their worth. That's not what we do at St Michael's. We know that these children need so much more than purely reading, writing and maths. They need to come to school ready to learn. They need to be fed. They need to know that they are worthy and that they are loved and that they have opportunities and that they've got a future ahead of them. And if we were to focus purely on reading, writing and maths within school, there will be children who will find that such a challenge that their sense of worth would be on the floor. So I don't believe it's purely our MAT that has a focus on that. I think this is a long-standing government and inspection issue, and my fear is that we will return to a process where the only measure of a school being good is what they get in their Key Stage 2 test scores, and that doesn't sit well with me.
Thank you. Barrett.
My friend Michael wants to donate some instruments to you. I have got a few djembe drums. Would you like them?
Yes,
please. Please let me know how I can get them to you, and it will be my pleasure.
Yes, John.
Thank you. Can I just very quickly add to Councillor Crossley, the answer to Councillor Crossley's question? Our focus within the Orchestra of Everything Foundation is not curriculum. Our focus is, and this is been misunderstood by some funders. Some funders believe that this is offered in school already, and it's not. There's a unique challenge in learning a musical instrument that we recognise, and it's the development of character. I've talked to other local organisations that do similar, the Bath Rugby Foundation, the boxing gym, and what we all have in common is it's the development of character. Their vehicle is sport or boxing, our vehicle is music. But it's that the more advantaged children like my own can buy into. But that's what we're trying to provide to the underserved communities.
Thank you. Liz.
And this is my very last question. However, I don't want to draw this out, but I do think that there will be research which government will be aware of, that it's the outside things that happen and that help reading, writing, maths, especially maths. So, I mean, I think the government is trying to tackle the basic things, but I do believe that eventually, and I would hope that the extra things that make the difference to youngsters, especially in St Michael's, who wouldn't have the resources for music, will make a huge difference. But my final question is, you've got these Year 6 pupils, they're all geared up, they've got all these instrumental skills. So what happens next when they leave St Michael's?
This is what we're working out. From here, I'm going to a meeting with the Southside Project, specifically on that and linking in with the police. We're in pilot mode, so my feeling is that it is youth clubs, it is musical youth clubs, so opening up somewhere like the football club or like Southside or some venue locally, getting in volunteers. I visited the Bath University Music Societies, the orchestra and the big band, a few months ago, and 20 students instantly said, sign me up. Corporates are involved, both universities are keen to get involved, so it's developing this whole network of musical and non-musical volunteers to carry on with the tuition and carry on with running groups and ensembles, but also just open up some space for these children to be and to hang out and to independently make music as well. So my answer is, we don't know yet, but we're figuring it out, and we have to figure it out over the next few weeks, because next week our first cohort of Year 6 children are leaving. So my job in that time is to get their contact details, so we can then contact the parents and say, look, here's what we can offer you over the next few weeks.
Thank you. And I've sort of got a follow-up question that makes a similar point to what Liz was making around the value added of all these, extracurricular things that are not just reading and writing and maths. Because I think there's been evidence for a long time about the value that music particularly can add, in building up those skills. So it is disappointing that government are just going to be focusing on a very narrow framework in order to judge, how good a school is. Years ago, value added was actually a component, in schools like, the long closed but still long missed Culver Hay, that was its, big draw, I think, was the fact that it had the value added, which was a key component in the success story of children that then left and went on to other things, including a member of Tears for Fears. So just picking up on what Leslie was also saying, there is a lot of musical talent in this area, and I think we'd all be very happy to help you tap into that, as well as into funding streams, etc., etc. So I would say, in the words of probably X Factor, is probably a yes from us. Thank you. Oh, sorry. So Liz wants to make a proposal. I hope it's along the lines I've just been saying.
Actually, I thought you were going to make it, Chair, but I think what we want to do as a panel is to put forward a proposal that that we look at ways of helping fund this particular project that's happening, and maybe with a view to looking at future projects, and that we would I don't know, we would like outside bodies like St John's Foundation. I'm just thinking of the various organisations that have been mentioned, that we as a panel may be able to write to these to ask them that this could happen.
Thank you. I think this would be appropriate to ask the Cabinet member to take away and to come back to us with a report on how that will work, and if we then need to do an additional piece of work, a sort of task and finish group, maybe we could consider that on the back of the work that the Cabinet member and officers will be doing. So I think they will have got a very definite steer from this panel about what we would like to see. And I would like to suggest that maybe at the next meeting that Paul may attend, he could give us, at least some shape of how that proposal is shaping up.
Chair, thank you. I think we ought to rename the committee, for the enthusiasm. John has got that enthusiasm, and I think that is absolutely brilliant. The truth of the matter is, of course, multi-academy trusts, over 94% of our schools are in multi-academy trusts, so our opportunities in terms of funding of schools is really virtually non-existent. And under those circumstances, we then got to look to see whether there's other ways that we can do this. So I can't give a black and white answer today, as you would expect, but what I am prepared to do, and we're in a minute coming to my report talking about the Youth Trailblazer. There are other sources of funding. We've got WECA, which mainly focuses on adult issues, but we're talking about an initiative that helps young people in communities rather than a school issue. And under those circumstances, you found a school that has embraced it, but I think it's the wider issue. So, yes, I'll bring back a report, but I can't make categoric assurances this morning, as you would expect.
Chris.
Thank you. Is that switched on? That's working?
It
Great.
is, yes, but you need to remember to say who you are.
I am just coming to that. Chris Wilford, Director of Education and Interim Director of Children's Services for Baines. It's great to hear about the project. I live with a family of musicians who play in a community band. I managed a music service and supported a music service to move out to the council to establish itself as a charity, which is WEMA, in the local area, which also has ambitions to reach out and support more children from disadvantaged backgrounds or underserved backgrounds with music lessons, which I think is fantastic. And my question is, how are you working with WEMA?
So WEMA do support our school. The main way that they are supporting us is by providing instruments for the children that need them within our school. We don't have them coming in to teach lessons at all. They are purely loaning instruments for the children to use as part of the Foundation's work. They provide them to us free of charge because of the level of pupil premium that we have within school. And as John pointed out, I signed the agreements to say that I will look after those instruments. They stay within school, they don't go home to our parents. And that was a conscious decision that we made because we have some concern about things like that going home and not being returned. So that was a conscious decision to keep it within the school building. That's the support that we're getting from Estelle at WEMA at the moment.
Yes, yes.
Just to remind us all that time is of the essence, and I think the money runs out in November. So, Councillor May, we're really good to hear back from you at our next meeting, which I believe is in September. But time is of the essence. So I think, if at all possible, that we as a panel maybe could. I know we're signalling out St Michael's School, but this is a school that's come to our attention and our notice. If we could, collectively contact St John's Foundation and maybe other organisations to ask that money be forthcoming, if that is in order, Chair.
I think we can all take it upon ourselves to contact the people that we know and to direct them to in your direction. And I'm sure that Kerry and Karina will make sure we've got your contact details so we can do so. Okay, well, good luck. And hopefully in November you can come back and tell us how it's all going, and we'll keep our fingers crossed that it will be a positive story that you continue to tell us. Okay. I'm just about to draw this item to a close, Paul, but I will allow you to speak very briefly.
I mean, basically, notwithstanding the fact that the creation of MATs and the removal of the LEAs was a huge, huge mistake, we are where we are. Is there any chance that we could bring in one of these MATs to address their policy-making decisions with us? Because it's quite clearly the MATs that we have to be talking to get this changed.
I would imagine that we will have to go via the regional director, and we do have updates from the regional schools director. Well, we've had certainly two. Have we had one in this year? We've had two overall, but maybe it's time to call them back.
Do we to come into that? Yeah, they came last in March. They tend to come at the same time as when we do the annual performance results. Unless that's too late, we can certainly ask them to. We will ask them to come back again then, but we can do that earlier. I think trust schools will also say that they have a small amount of funding which has to go around for lots of things around that as well. But I wouldn't want to completely take the words out of the mouths of my CEO colleagues and trusts. That we can certainly make that ask.
I think there's an awful lot of agencies, though, that have a responsibility, including the government, to ensure that our children become well-rounded citizens of the future with all the skills that they need. So, yes, we could invite MATs, we could invite the Regional Schools Director, we could send an invitation to the Secretary of State for Education. But, you know, I think, you know, we need to have a certain degree of pragmatism as well about who we will call to this panel. But thank you very much for sharing your enthusiasm for the great work that you're doing, and you know, everything we can do to help, I'm sure we will do. If you would like to leave, you're more than welcome, or you can stay if you prefer sitting in a hot room. Okay, so I'm going to move the minutes to the end of the agenda and move on to the Targeted Early Help and Prevention Task Group update, which I will be giving. So it's just a really, really short update to say that we have now met twice, I think, yes, and it is very clear that the work we're doing in that panel mirrors the work that government wishes councils to be doing, particularly around family help. So, you know, last time we heard from Paula Sumner, who is the Assistant Director, sorry, I abbreviated, and I couldn't remember what I'd abbreviated it to, Assistant Director for Children Transformation, and Phoebe Holland, the Assistant Director for Children's Services. I think both are interim directors. Yeah. And we heard more about the work that they're doing, this whole family approach, team wraparounds, help with help and support, and the wide range of services that will be sort of drawn in. The key to this is around empowering families and preventing children from coming into care. As I said, you know, we're sort of somewhat mirroring the work that they're doing, but we're asking for more regular updates and to make sure that we can add value as that's going on, as well as providing steers as we feel appropriate. I think one of the key worries that we have is the resource that's been allocated by government to this piece of work, which is, I think at the moment, only £400,000. So some of the questions that we've been asking are around, is this enough? You know, how is more going to be acquired to ensure that actually what is delivered is the best that it can possibly be, to make sure that our families are supported and have access to that early help and support, which is the task that we've been given as a group. So they're talking about integrated front doors, the use of technology, trying not to fix what isn't broken, but also at the same time ensuring that we know, well, really that we know, all of us know exactly how the whole system is created, so that we can make sure that there's no duplication, and that every single component, every single cog in that is effective as well. So that was a very short rattle through what we've been doing. Very happy to take any questions, or if anybody's got any points that they want to add into that, particularly from members of the group itself, the task group. Liz.
What I will say is that Paula Sumner, in particular, who is running the project as such, which is Family First Partnerships, it's actually transformational what is happening. Now, we've said in this panel that we don't get enough money for 100,000 from the government, but it is added to what we are already spending. And Dina has mentioned the integrated approach, and that it's building on what's there already, the current organisation, but it's a one door. It's where families in need approach and are put in contact with one social worker or health worker or health partnership worker, and that person stays with them, and their plans and assessment stays with them. So it's very much a transformational thing that is happening, and I believe almost it's overtaken us as a targeted early prevention group, because that is taking over all that happens within families and young people. And I think, you know, this is one thing that we're going to be that we have looked at, and is changing things for the better. What I think we now have to do is maybe to look at best practice. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of our terms of reference, that we're going to look at other local authorities where there is best practice. But at the moment, it looks like, I don't want to go on and on about this, but it looks like Family First Partnerships is transforming the way that families get help.
Thank you. And I think also building on work that we've done in other aligned and similar areas, such as with our Connecting Families work, which was built on the back of troubled families. Sorry, I had a moment of blankness there. But you're right, and certainly it's on my agenda that we make sure that we look at best practice from other authorities across, not just this region, but across the country as well, to make sure that we can bring that in as well. We will have early sight of the business case that the transformation team are putting together, and that's on our agenda for the meeting we're having in the last week of August. So we know how to spend our summer holidays. Okay. So any more questions or points anybody wants to raise? Okay. Well, thank you. And can I thank everybody who's involved in that task group? And even if you're not sort of officially named in that task group, if there is something you want to add to, then please contact me as the chair of the task group, and I'm very happy to hear what you have to say, and you know, to build in, if appropriate, you know, your thoughts as well as we progress. Okay. And now I'm going to bring in our cabinet member to give us his update. Obviously, we've seen the report, so is there anything else that you want to add to that report, or anything you want to emphasise?
Yes, please. Can I just start off, Chair, by introducing Claire and Laura from the Business and Skills team. And I think it's particularly relevant to the item that I've got, Youth Guarantee Trailblazer. Last week, the Bath Rugby Foundation are organising a scheme that I went to see 35 children from Bidlington School, where they were learning skills around work experience, and it touched my heart. And I think it's really important example of how if we focus working with WECA, we may be able to find different funding schemes that we can in actual fact tap into. I also had a meeting last week, just by coincidence, with St John's. The new chief executive there is doing a review of their strategies moving forward, and that has left us in terms of their support for various work that's gone on. We're making the point that St John's are really important to the community, and that we actually would hope that they'll be able to continue to support us in the long term. So there are other ways in which we can actually seek the funding, but Councillor Crossley made the point, I think, really quite hard, is how do we find funding for education when education's not directly within our funding scope. So when I answered in a positive way, I was really hoping that I'd be able to have another conversation with Claire, because they're very good at actually delivering results. So at this point, could I just hand over to Claire to talk about the Youth Trailblazer, because I think it's a really important scheme, and it links in with the work that Amy had done around the public health, the health improvement programme, because if you actually start to look at children in schools, and they're in the school for 24% of their time, the rest of the time they're in their families, and it's about the community and how we engage more effectively in the community. And some communities in Bath and in North East Somerset are remote physically from various facilities. So this committee knows that really well. So at this point, if we can get the system working.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah. Hi, so thank you for that, Paul. So I'm Claire Lynch, Business and Skills Manager for Baines Council. In April this year, we were issued money from government via the Combined Authority to support young people progress. We are one of 8 of the targeted Trailblazer regions in the UK, and in each UA area, we're delivering slightly differently. For Bath and North East Somerset, we decided that we wanted to offer support that was accessible but meaningful, training opportunities and employment for young people. The eligibility criteria is set by government, and that was 18 to 21-year-olds, but we pushed back and we have managed to get it for 16 to 17-year-olds who are at risk of need, unidentified. But our focus for Bath and North East Somerset is on those young people in rural areas. We've been listening and talking to young people directly and partners that they're working with, and they've highlighted that their main barriers towards any kind of progression is transport and their lack of options. So we have funding until March 2026, which we, in that process and in that time, will start to look at how we can continue the funding after this. But at the moment, it's a pilot. And really, we just need support with getting that message out there. Laura, within the team, is leading the programme. Did you want to say?
Yeah, sure. Like Claire said, our kind of priority well, the programme's open to all young people within Baines. We won't exclude any young people. If they approach us for support, then we will accept them onto our programme. But we do have a particular focus and priority for those living in our sort of rural communities. And we've got 2 dedicated members of staff who are able to offer young people coaching and support through things like work tasters and mock interview events that we're putting on for up to 6 months. So we have got that dedicated support. I think what we've been spending a lot of time in the early stages of the programme is understanding and mapping where our young people are, where existing provision is, and listening to our partners. And I think we are now starting to do drop-ins within the community, and we've got colleagues in my team who are doing a great job at engaging local businesses in the areas where the young people are as well. So we've already had some commitment from some local employers in particular areas to attend and provide mock interviews who have actually got job vacancies and apprenticeship opportunities as well. And going back to the transport, we have got some funding for bus passes and things for our participants, but where, recognising some of our villages haven't got reliable or any existing public transport, looking at what other options we can put into place that are going to be sustainable for the young people. And as Claire said, we've got the funding until March of next year. There was an extension announced during the spending review, but we've not had any details from DWP or from our Combined Authority project manager yet around what that's going to look like past March. So we're just trying to raise awareness and offer the support to as many young people as we can for the programme.
Thank you.
I don't know if we've got a few questions on that particular part of the Cabinet report. I've got three hands who went up at the same time. I'm going to start with Liz, and then I'll go to David and then Michael.
Okay, thank you very much, and it sounds like a great project that's happening, especially in our rural areas. Now, I represent the ward of Poulton. There are others who represent Chewmagnon, etc., in North East Somerset. Firstly, I have two questions, if that's okay, Chair. How do you define rural? I mean, would wards, district areas which have less than 10,000, would that be a rural area?
Well, that's a really good question, and to be honest, for us, we're open to all areas. I think for us, rural is anything beyond, kind of Bath, Keynsham, Midsummer Norton could be classed as rural and Radstock, but they have got good transport links. So we're trying to, go right out around our boundaries, like, Chewstoke, Timsbury, all around the kind of villages that we don't necessarily see regularly or have provision at the moment for young people. So, yeah, we're kind of defining it. We're working with our main job centre in Bath, but we're also recognising that many young people who live out in the Chew Valley area, for example, will attend the South Bristol Job Centre, and again with Frome and Wells. So we're reaching out to all of those, partners just to make sure we capture all of our young people that want support. It wasn't really, so we, kind of in summary, we haven't really got a significant, what's what I'm looking for, a definition of a rural area. We're just kind of trying to focus on, the villages and communities that we, at the moment, our providers are saying there isn't provision or there's not much engagement going on for these, this age of young people.
Okay, so obviously a village like Poulton would be part of that. Just
Yes,
trying to pin
yeah.
you down a little bit. And you say there are all sorts of things, the community involvement, business people involved, drop-ins. Sounds really good. Have you got a timetable of what's happened? Because we don't really have any dates or information. And there's one really important event that's happening, because not in employment, education and training is a problem for us in Baines. And there's an engagement event planned, or has it happened? So if you could just put a little bit of more detail on what you've said. Thank you.
So we've basically been slightly on a bit of the back foot because the money was issued in April and we were through a pre-election at that time, so we weren't able to promote, advertise. We've also, due to the restructuring within the combined authority, we haven't been able to use our own marketing. So we have to wait until the combined authority have had their ducks in a row to be able to do that. So, but outside of that, the team have been actively going out and engaging with all of our partners and providers within the region. And like I'd said in my opening part, that we've been speaking directly with young people. So we are actively out there and engaging, but the idea was that as soon as we've got the marketing, and there's been some press releases that have recently gone out, but this is why we're here, because we really need to get that message out very quickly.
Yeah, and we're still very much in the planning stages. So, for example, we did have some dates set up in July for a mock interview session, but because we've been delayed in sort of generating referrals of young people, we've had to push that back. So we're planning to start them in September. So once we've got some venues and some dates, we will sort of publicise, on social media and through all of our channels. And we're also planning an event in the autumn for young people, to get as many young people as we can together with our support providers and local employers to kind of, bring them together and get some feedback on our programme, but also offer them, as much support and access to opportunities as we can. We're hoping to do that in a neutral venue, again, listening to feedback from young people. So once we've got that sort of secured, we'll be promoting that and sharing the information on that. But we're looking to do kind of monthly mock interview sessions. And we've also got a target around providing 100 work placements for young people in local employers. So that's very much really early stages of conversations, but we haven't been able to kind of progress that yet. But now we're getting referrals in and we're meeting with young people and we're signing them up to the programme. That will start happening quite quickly.
Not to give you even more work, Paul, but perhaps at the next meeting where you're there, our children panel, our children's panel, maybe you could give us an update on this Trailblazer events that are happening. Thank you.
I'd be delighted to do that, Chair. I mean, the other thing is that I'm also very keen on pushing the issue around certain parts of Bath where the bus service doesn't work very well for those children, and they feel excluded by the system. It's the work that was done by Amy in public health around the health improvement programme. And I do think we've got to make sure we're actually picking up a scheme that is available for all those young people. So I've already made that point a couple of times to Claire and her team. We need to pick up the fact that you can actually find ways of people transporting around the area in different ways. And if you've got some funding to do it, then it's a great opportunity to do that. But we also, the point I was making around the Bath Rugby Foundation is, in terms of needs, you can identify the children in our school system who are potentially needs. And if you work with the schools, you can actually identify those children and you can start to work with them before they become needs, so that you can actually show them the advantages of doing things in a different way than perhaps in tradition that they've found in their communities. So I think this is a really exciting project, and I'm glad you've asked me to come back, because I'm looking over at Claire and she's nodding.
I wrote a list somewhere, now I've lost my list. Can you remember who was next? I think it was David, yes.
Thank you. I guess when we got this information and the press releases came out in the last few weeks, this was the first I kind of heard of it in the Chew Valley, and I attend quite a lot of parish council meetings, etc. So I'm curious to what work you've done so far within the Chew Valley and what work you'd be doing in the future, and what other options are you really considering for young people in the villages with none or limited public transport?
Thank you. In terms of the Chew Valley, I know that my colleagues have been out across Baines in terms of local businesses, but our employability coach, Sandy Cook's been out to Chew Valley schools. She's been engaging with them, particularly around their young people who are leaving sixth form. So she's arranged to kind of go into school at the beginning of September to meet with young people whose kind of transition and plans haven't gone as they intend. So that's kind of where we're starting from. But the school have offered us for us to use them as a venue, and it's a safe place to meet young people who know the school as well. And yeah, in terms of other kind of events and things, we'll, as they kind of come to life from sort of planning stage, we can kind of share that through our channels.
I think as well it's important to note that business and skills, our portfolio was always historically 19 plus, and we've been pushing quite hard because we've identified various gaps to push for funding to be able to unlock various areas. So this is actually quite new in certain points for us, and again why we're here today to ask you if you have groups or if you have hubs or areas that we might not know about, for us to have those introductions or to support us with that.
Yeah, to help raise awareness. I know, so a couple of our business engagement colleagues in the team are talking, they're on various groups with parish councillors as well, so they are starting to sort of spread. Now we've got some marketing material, they're starting to spread the word, so anything you can do to support us, if we provide you with some, sort of summary and some of our marketing, if you could help, promote that for your particular areas, that would be really helpful to us.
Yes, of course, I'd be happy to do that, but it would be good to see some more public engagement sessions out in the rural areas. So going back to transport, so what other options are you really considering for young people out in the rural areas with none or limited buses?
Yeah, of course. So again, we've listened to feedback from young people, and we're exploring, while we've got the money to sort of trial these things, we're exploring all options. So we're looking at potentially funding on like a series of sort of minibus services in particular areas at particular times of the day. So if we put on an event for young people or mock interviews, we will provide transport for that. And there's lots of logistics and dynamics of certain young people not wanting to be, in a particular form of transport with other young people for various reasons. So we're just trying to, listen to the professionals that work with them that know them well and figure out what's going to work best. My colleague Mia, Claire, has also been working with some of our partners around the sort of e-bikes and sort of a bike loan scheme where that's appropriate. But again, recognising that for some villages where there is no, sort of safe footpaths, for example, to even sort of navigate that, we are also looking to explore whether the CBT, the moped training would work for some young people. And again, it's a case-by-case basis. We don't want to start promoting that we're going to be paying for driving lessons for everybody, but for young people where they've got a job offer with a van, for example, and they just need to get their licence, then we will consider that if that's the ultimate kind of obstacle that would help them achieve their employment opportunity, then we can look at that. But yeah, again, it's all on the table. We're willing to consider all options, but for some of the really kind of remote areas, having your own transport is likely to be the only long-term option.
Thank you. And yeah, once again, I'd be very happy if you would kind of keep me involved proactively. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't quite hear one thing. Did you say there was some, I don't know, there's some sort of leaflets or something that could be available that councillors could be,
Yes,
share?
we've got some marketing materials and we've got some posters and we've got some leaflets which we're looking for more young people friendly versions to be created, but we've got to wait for the combined authority. But we have got some materials that we can share now just to get started in the meantime. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael.
I've got a couple of questions. One of the things you mentioned about that I know you've only been running for a short period of time now, but have you identified particular areas where there is demand for what you're trying to do? And I'd be interested in where those are. Obviously, I'm a Midsummer Norton councillor, and though we have a bigger population than, say, some of the other parts of rural North East Somerset, transport is still a big issue, getting in and out. A lot of people live in Norton but actually work in Bristol or Bath. We don't have many big employers in the Somer Valley area. So I'm just wondering if there were any kind of incentives for businesses to get involved in supporting what you're doing, and actually how you're acknowledging that support to let other businesses know that it could be a worthy get a project to get involved with. And lastly, have you sort of talked to people like Youth Connect Southwest, because reaching 16 to 17-year-olds, particularly if their needs, is going to be very challenging.
Yeah, sure. So I was just thinking I can remember the questions in order. So in terms of Midsummer Norton, again, we've got the ability to host drop-ins that already exist there, so from the Hollies and things. So that's already been happening and it is underway. And again, some of the employers in Midsummer Norton, like Bridges, and then some of the employers in the Westfield Industrial Estate have been engaged with by our business engagement colleagues, and they've been really positive. So we're just trying to kind of build on the existing relationships that we've got. Going on to the question around some of our key partners in our delivery include Youth Connect Southwest. We're working with Curo, Workwise team, Bath Rugby Foundation. Some of the key partners who are working with these young people and know them well, they're our key kind of referral partners in, and they will be continuing to support. We're hoping to add value to what they're already doing in terms of the transport support. I can't remember what the second question was, sorry. Oh, okay.
Yeah, just say I'd be happy to support what you're doing in Midsummer Norton,
great.
and
Thank you.
work with other local councillors if that's appropriate. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't see any more hands apart from Kevin's, just gone up.
Thank you. Just check, can you just say with this project, there seems to be a lot of projects at the moment that whether they are all tied in together, I don't know, but does this fit in any way with other projects that are currently running, like youth hubs or anything else, and as vehicles for what you're trying to do? And how and who will evaluate this project at the end of the pilot scheme? So what sort of things are you being evaluated against, and who's going to be doing that?
So the Youth Trailblazer does fit in. Obviously, it's funded by DWP, so they will be doing the evaluation. We have got some very strict kind of reporting mechanisms, so we're having to report around So one of the key things that we're really positive about actually is that one of the targets of the number of young people that we're referring on to mental health and wellbeing support. So whilst our focus is supporting young people to access education, employment and training, actually we're recognising that a lot of young people need support to access, wider support in order to be work ready. And as a team, we hold several projects that do overlap to a certain degree, in terms of working with schools that have got the young people who are at risk of becoming NEETs, and then kind of rolling into support for those that are then NEET. Obviously, the work experience pilot that Paul attended last week is a good example of that.
Could I just add as well, so we've just written a proposal as well into DWP for funding around youth hubs as well for Bath and North East Somerset, and we've done that in partnership with Youth Connect, Bath Mind and Radio Bath. So we'll be looking at various hubs that will be accessible throughout. Again, they're pilots, so it's a trial and error. And again, if they work, then we're able to go in a much stronger position to be able to ask for additional funding.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Kevin?
I'm not totally clear on all the criteria you're being judged against, if you know what I mean. You mentioned sort of referral work ready.
Yeah.
So then are there sort of 6 targets, 20?
Right, I see,
20?
yes. So
and,
we've got...
and on the sort of dovetailing in, so the youth hubs as well is an also a pilot type activity as well. So you're piloting a pilot, are you?
No.
Or are you coordinating the youth hubs, or are you just part of the youth hub?
We were told that there was funding available. We never want to miss an opportunity to access that funding from government. The criteria around that was to support young people within your local authority area. That's what we've gone for. The very fact that we can dovetail it into other programmes that we're delivering means that those young people have access, and it's a joined up approach, which for us is key. So we're basically being dictated as to what is available funding-wise, to be honest. With regards to the evaluation, did you want to...
For the Trailblazer specifically, we've got a target of engaging and supporting 250 young people between now and the end of March 26. And within that, there is a series of sort of broken down deliverables that I'm happy to share again if anyone wants that detailed breakdown. But we've got a target against, certain amount of young people starting apprenticeships, entering training, entering employment, and also we've got, like I said, to engage 100 employers to offer work tasters, mock interviews, work placements. I just remembered what your other point was. So there is, as part of the Trailblazer and the funding that we have, so we've got a participant bursary, so we've got funding that we can allocate to individual young people. We've also got a standalone pot of funding to support employers, so we can offer them funding for whatever they might need, uniform training of staff, for example, HR support, anything that they might need that would help them offer a meaningful and positive, recognising there's a lot of pressures on certainly small businesses in our area, so we're able to offer that funding to them as part of the programme too.
Sorry, Chair, can I just do one follow-up on the mental health bit?
Question.
Thank you so much. Do you find at the moment, as you're setting this out, that the work-ready element is a key, is a bigger part of what you're doing, or is it just wonder how it's all fitted in? Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I think the key word here is progression. So whatever is progression for that young person, is it training, is it employment, is it support around mental health, is it overcoming a barrier, is it starting an apprenticeship? There's so many, it's not a one-size-fits-all, it can't be. So the mental health element, working with our partners, again, that isn't something that we as individuals, we will refer them or work with those partners that they come referred into us for.
Yeah. As part of the Trailblazer as well, all 3 unitary authorities are using an evaluation tool called Outcome Star. It's been around for a while, but we're using the Work Star as an evaluation tool method, and we're really looking forward to using that because it offers a baseline for young people, and again, it will be reviewed 3 times during their time with us on programme. And for those young people who are further away from achieving a job or whatever their long-term goal is, it will be a really nice visual aid for them to see the progression that they've made. So we're really positive about being able to use that as a tool as well.
Okay, thank you. Leslie, I think that's the last person on my list. Leslie.
Yes, thank you. It sounds like an absolutely fascinating project, although it seems quite short-term for what it needs to do. It seems like you've got quite a few of the bases covered, but it would be good to see if you've got some kind of communications plan on where you're already going. If you come to Radstock, try the basketball court of an evening, that's usually pretty busy, or the seat. Young people go and sit on the seat. That's the one that's not broken. So it'd be good to see that. It'd be good to see a little bit more around your project aims and what that plan is. I'm a bit concerned it's short term, and I know a lot of these things are, but what obviously I think we'd like to see is something really positive coming out of this. It doesn't surprise me you're picking up lots of issues on mental health. One of the things coming out of COVID was a lot of young people had spent a couple of years in their bedrooms, and they're getting really stressed about being out of their bedrooms now. I know there's young people in Radstock, talking to the youth hub there, that are really worried about getting on a bus and coming into Bath. So having local employers involved and offering opportunities, I think, would be helpful. But it's good to see a little bit more of the project, where you're trying to get to, and then we can have a look at what the outcomes are later on. Thank you.
This also might, feed into the report that we're expecting next time round from Councillor May.
Chair, can I just... I'd like to thank Claire and...
I haven't asked my questions yet.
Sorry.
Can I do that first? Thank you. Yeah, I just had a couple of questions. So one is around, so you had this funding that was allocated, I think you said in April. So are you aware that literally, as we've been speaking, there's been another announcement of more funding from government for investment in youth service projects? I don't know whether or not that will, could be applied to this. Obviously, 500 million. Is that right? Across the country is not going to be a huge amount for each individual authority or each individual project, but is that, would you expect to receive something from that kind of project that might help with the, pick up on Leslie's point, the longevity of such a project?
All of that money will go straight through to the combined authority due to the new devolution. So if it links in with their business and skills plan, then we should be able to. However, that's just my area of work. Depending on what the age range is, that could be something that ends up in various other departments within the council. It may not just sit with us. But if we have access to that, we'll be able to highlight it, as we have done with many other departments within the council.
Thank you. And, obviously, as somebody who's been, long pressing for WECA to be more involved in skills, particularly, for the younger ages, you could expect that I would be pleased to hear of this initiative. Are you working with other bodies? I know you said about Youth Connect South West, but also Bath College, because I know that they've got a jobs fair, I think, coming up.
Yeah, we've got really great relationships with all the provision within Bath and North East Somerset, so the college is just one of many that we're speaking and working with directly.
Both universities have expressed an interest in supporting, particularly the University of Bath. They've offered to support us to do an evaluation piece as well because of their participation work that they're already doing. They held an event last week with young people and brought loads of young people together to feed back on several issues that several of my colleagues attended, which was really exciting. So that kind of feeds into the youth voice that we're trying to promote and support through the Youth Trailblazer as well, to make sure it's led by young people, not by professionals.
I have two other questions which are sort of linked, the first one is around connectivity generally. So we're talking specifically about transport. But obviously a big issue in rural areas is around broadband. You know, so is there any scope within this project to make sure that, you know, young people also can not only have a bus pass and possibly a bus, but also can access the bus timetable, which is obviously going to all be online these days?
Yeah, so within my portfolio, I look after digital now as well. So we recently did the 5G pilot. We, during that process, have set up various hubs throughout Bath and North East Somerset, where we have got the Bath Digital Divide involved, as well as Wiltshire Divide now, but they will come with a laptop, an iPad, an iPhone, and individuals who come into the hub are able to access that. We are getting it to a point now where they'll be able to take away that access, able to access and take away the device. And it's only for a small cost of like £25. So yeah, we're doing that with them.
And then this is definitely my last question, which is around children and young people with SEND. Is there any additional work that you're doing specifically around this group, which tend to be more represented within our NEETs figures than other groups?
Yeah, sure. So again, the programme's kind of open to everybody. I think with particular, we've noticed that some of the referrals have come through from young people with neurodiversity or any sort of disclosed additional needs. And I think what we've done for those young people so far is we have referred them onto a sister kind of programme we've got within our team called We Work for Everyone, and they're the kind of specialists in dealing, you know, with those additional kind of needs and advocating for those young people. So again, as a trailblazer, we're looking to kind of add value to the support that they're able to offer those young people, and talking to employers. There's wider conversations going on around, you know, disability confidence, supported internships, obviously going on, working with the college again, project search. So yeah, we are kind of broadening out our reach to as many many groups and partners that we can through all of our various projects that we hold.
Thank you. I think we all welcome joined up thinking as well.
Absolutely.
David, and then we'll finally get to Paul, and maybe we'll look at the rest of his report as well. David.
Thank you. Thank you. A follow-up question. You mentioned you had set up some digital hubs.
Yeah.
Where are they?
So far we have, because we're working with the college on this as well, so far we've got Twerton, we have got Midsummer Norton, Peasdown, Polton. I will check on Chew Valley. I know that there has been discussions around finding and accessing a hub. If you have a suggestion of one?
The Chew Valley Community Library in Bishop Sutton. If
I'll check, because there's a full itinerary.
yeah, it'd be quite nice to know. Maybe how do we get emails to each other?
Sorry?
How do we contact each other?
Claire Lynch. It's on the internal system, David.
Rather late in the day, I realised that this should have been a whole separate report, really.
Run through it all.
But I think, yeah, maybe next time, rather than add it into Paul's report, maybe we'll ask for an update from you, which can be a separate report. But I think, you know, as I asked before, if we can have materials, you know, about this, about where the hubs are, where, you know, where our young people can sort of access, you know, the sort of this information, I think that would be really, really helpful. I'm going to preempt Paul now by saying thank you very much to both of you for, you know, giving us such a much better understanding of what this project entails, whilst also making sure that we've got plenty more questions which we can give to you next time. Anyway, so Councillor May.
Thank you, Chair. Can I come in now?
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. I want to thank Claire and Laura for coming along this morning. It's actually quite an important step forward because in simple terms, they often report to another committee of BAMES, but we are children and adults, so we actually cover both children and adults. So it's around apprenticeships. We've been talking with them about Summer Valley Enterprise Zone, about whether we can actually work with the college to get employment and training in that particular area. We're also moving much more towards working with WECA, with the new approach, the new mayor that we've got, and how we can actually improve relations with WECA, perhaps cut down a bit on the bureaucracy of some of their schemes. So this is, I think, a big step for this committee to actually be thinking about how we engage more effectively with Claire's team in the future. I want to ask Claire one question, and that is September a reasonable period of time to be doing that report, or should we perhaps be looking a little bit further away? Are you okay with that?
Actually, October would be the next.
Okay, the children's one. Yeah, thank you. And the other thing is, I think we'll pick up the fact that it would be really sensible for us to actually communicate with our parish councils because they are closest to the community in democracy terms. So I think it would be good to actually follow that through as well. So I'll take that up with Claire and Laura moving forward. But there's an awful lot going on. And you can see from the answers you've had, is flexible, and we will do whatever we've got to do to actually pick up the things moving forward, the best initiatives to continue, and hope, and I really do hope, that we'll get funding beyond this year to do that.
That would be nice. Also, not just individual parishes, but I think there's a parish liaison meeting, which I think would probably welcome, you know, presentation from you as well. Although it is this Wednesday, so.
I deliberately didn't mention that because I thought that was a bit too short. So shall I carry on,
officers
Chair?
like a challenge. Yes, anything else you wanted to draw our attention to in your report? Otherwise, I'm sure you are prepared for a certain degree of questioning. Thank you very much, Laura and Claire.
Well, as normal, I can talk on most things, so would it be sensible...
We'll go straight to questions then.
Take questions. Can I also just point out that I've got Richard with us around the funding issue around free school meals, because it's a bit more complicated than my intelligence can actually cover. So I've asked Richard to come along and answer any questions that come up on that.
Thank you. I know that we'll have some questions around that, so welcome very much, Richard, and to Damien as well. So, panel, questions for the Cabinet member? Liz.
Perfect timing, because I've got a question on auto-enrolment of free school meals. And it looks like an additional 666 pupils from Universal Credit are now entitled to free school meals. And have they been identified? Have these pupils and their families been identified? Yeah.
Sorry, do you need some help with the... Oh, Drew's on his way. Did you have any other questions you wanted to ask, Liz? So you might as well ask them.
Okay. Okay, yeah.
Ask them now?
Yeah. Okay. I'll let them concentrate first. I've got one on free school meals, and then I've got one other on the safety valve.
Okay, that's the one on the safety valve then.
Okay. I'm still on. Paul, whilst they're sorting out the IT, I just thought I'd ask another question, and it's on the safety valve. Now, it looks very complicated that the safety valve, our submission is being held up by our free schools, and it looks like there's been a pause on what's happening with free schools. So it all looks very complicated, and it looks, because we obviously need a reply on the safety valve. I think I've probably asked a question on safety valve every meeting for the last goodness knows how long. So is there any way forward at the moment?
Chris can answer on the timescales, but we've got to answer their questions that they've sent back to us, which are perfectly reasonable questions. And I think that's probably this week. This week, we've got to do the response to that. But we've got one major issue of contention, and that will not surprise this committee, and that relates to, they've asked a question of what we're going to do if we don't get the school at Culverhay. And at the moment, I'm in discussions with Chris and with the Chief Exec about how do we actually answer that, because we could argue the case that we extend the safety valve bid for 20 years if we haven't got that money. But the simple fact is, it's absolutely contingent upon us achieving break-even on the ascend costs. So if we don't get that capital scheme, then we're really in quite a mess. So at the moment, if they're saying that we're not going to get the rest of the safety valve funding, then what answer do we give them that they can actually say that we'll be able to deal with that situation? And it's a real problem for us at the moment, because if we don't get that funding, we were sort of indicated that we were going to get it in the spring statement. We were then told it was going to be, so I think the government is having to sort out the finances of the country, and at the moment we don't seem to be getting the answer that we desperately need. And saying that putting SEND into mainstream school is the solution, it isn't the solution for the type of children that we're talking about for the Culverhay site. So it's a big issue for us moving forward, and at the moment I don't think we've agreed exactly what the wording is going to be, because at the moment they're holding back, in effect, was it 9 million? 11 million. 11 million pounds of safety valve, which would help us moving forward. The other question they asked was, we've shown a curve of the reduction in expenditure, and they quite rightly said, well, can you show when you do this initiative, it'll do that, and when you do the next initiative, you do that. So they're actually looking for us to provide, if you like, a bit more intelligence in the form that we've actually submitted the last submission. But the big issue is Culverhay.
So just asking a supplementary to that, obviously, is it a different section of education that you need to talk to about Culverhay and having free school for special needs children?
I think we've spoken to everybody. We've sent letters to the Secretary of State. We've spoken to the regional DFE. They've spoken to national DFE. And the simple fact is, at the moment, there's a complete block. I haven't spoken to the Chancellor, but I've also gone through your own group leader to see whether there's routes that we could actually, if they're not going to fund it, then at least tell us. If they are going to fund it, can they give us some indication when it's likely to be? And it's an embarrassment. We don't want to have having arguments with the DFE or the Secretary of State, but the simple fact is we are contingent upon that scheme being in the system soon, because every year it doesn't happen, it costs us another £4 million. So it's a major issue for Baines moving forward. They've agreed now that they're continuing the statutory override of the accounts for another year, I think to 27? 2 years. 27 is it now? Yes. So that takes a bit of the pressure off in terms of us coming with the solution. But that's still real money that is costing this council, although it's not showing on our books in terms of the council tax.
Thank you. So obviously we've got another 2 years, and I do believe our group leader is in contact with the government, so hopefully that might speed things up a bit. If I could, if I could ask some questions about auto enrolment for free school meals. Apparently, additional 666 pupils, because of their entitlement to universal credit, are going to be in receipt of free school meals. And have we identified these pupils and their homes?
I'm Damien Peake, the Revenues and Benefits Manager at Baines. The figure of 666 additional pupils, that was based on the government's assessment of the likely increase because of the rule changes with the widening of eligibility to anyone who receives universal credit. We actually think by September 2026 there'll be 1,128 additional children captured by these new rules. We haven't yet identified them. That work is going to probably begin after we've conducted the auto-enrolment process this August, because that will impact the figure of the remaining children who will become entitled from September 2026. So we need to kind of establish a baseline before we can estimate how many additional children will be brought into entitlement. We're also sort of a little bit nervous about contacting these households too far in advance, because it could be that the government could change the rules quite abruptly, as they have done fairly recently from this April just gone.
So are you actually going to contact these parents and children?
Yes.
Of these children? And will it be in place by September?
September 2026.
Does that when it comes in, or is it
That's
September
when the rule changes to widen eligibility to everyone who receives universal credit will come in.
Okay. Thank you.
The auto-enrolment project, which we're currently engaged on, involved comparing data from households who receive council tax support and various other benefits, and our own free school meals case management system to estimate which one of those who should qualify currently based on the current rules and who aren't receiving this help, to encourage, to actually claim on their behalf. That project will finish before September 2026. So all of those children who aren't currently receiving this help but should in theory be receiving it from the start of the new academic year.
I think you've nearly explained my next question, but I'm just going to ask it anyway, because we've got 540 households with 769 children who currently claim, but initial indicators say that it's, we're not sure, it could be 462 households, but we're not sure how many children. So do we know how many? And I think, Paul, I asked a cabinet question, and just to get clarification. So is it 769 children, or 540 households, or is it 462 households?
It's 462 households. Obviously, some of these households have more than one child who might be eligible, and it's approximately 1.5 children per household. We've worked it out. But I would just caveat that these are just estimates, and as we're now working through and actually logging these applications, we're finding that unfortunately only about half of the 462 households that we've identified are actually entitled, because their children might be too young to be at school yet, or they might go to schools outside of Baines, or there might be an existing claim but it's in the partner's name. So it's very difficult to give you an accurate answer at this point as to how many will be entitled, and obviously possibly what you're going to ask next is how that's going to impact the pupil premium as well. But I would say, to give you a guide for now, I would think that there'll be about 230 households who will qualify through auto-enrolment this year, and approximately 350 additional children, and you could sort of calculate the additional pupil premium based on that. If you'd like, I could come back in October, is it, when you next meet, and give you an update, because we should have worked through all of the cases by then and know how things stand.
Well, that was going to be my next comment. Could you bring back some information? So Paul's going to be a busy session in October. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so next on my list, I think, is David and then Kevin.
Thank you for your report, Paul. I noticed you've said that there will be a report in October on school attendance. And given the importance of declining potential school attendance, and we've heard from public health and education, etc., and given the fact that the leading cause of persistent absence from school is infection, and that respiratory infection in particular has increased since 2020, could we see some of that data in the report?
Yes, I mean, the other day, for the committee's attention, you mentioned about in America that long COVID has been an issue there. So I've followed that up to ask some questions. So if we can, we'll be trying to pick that up in the report as well.
Thank you. I think, you know, there is an issue around COVID generally, isn't there? Because we feel that we are told almost that it's gone away, but obviously it has not. Just the emergency part has. So, you know, I think it's very relevant, and we look forward to hearing more then. Chris.
Thank you, Chris Wilford, Director of Education, Interim Director of Children's Services. I just wanted to clarify that actually our school attendance levels have bounced back to pre-COVID levels. So the overall attendance has, but we do have an increasing number of children with health-related issues are off longer. But just for reassurance, the Baines school attendance overall, primary and secondary, has bounced back to pre-COVID levels. It is actually better than the South West average, but we can go through that in more detail in the October report.
Chris. Kevin and then Leslie.
Thank you, Chair. Several of my questions have already been answered, but there's a couple of areas just to probe a little bit further. Bless you, Paul. The first one, around the free school meals. There seems to be conflicting messages. Obviously, in terms of families getting their entitlement, excellent. In terms of schools that may not be having pupil premium in the benefit of receiving that and having to subsidise free school meals costs, it doesn't seem to be a great benefit. Is the local authority and our other local authorities pushing to sort out this issue around the full funding of free school meals so that schools aren't going to be losing out further on supporting families and doing the best by their children? And the bit around the safety valve, I hear what you're saying about basically those schools are the linchpin, if I understood correctly, of the programme. So the only two other things that there was some sort of comments made around some projects applied for through the local authorities were on hold, yet other projects that were applied via via the MAT Academy route were being either allowed or continued. Has any avenue been explored with our Baines MATs about taking on maybe the application for these schools themselves? Or is the council even considering whether there is, given this huge amount, 4 million you quote each year, any chance of saving that money in terms of capital up front, or even talking to the DfE about greater support from the council in that? But that's sort of the two bits at the moment, please.
Right, I think that's three actually, but it's the 3 R's. I asked Richard to come along because I think on the funding around the pupil premium funding, it's always favoured schools to try and get parents to claim free school meals, and if the funding isn't there in the future, then that's actually, that incentive actually does reduce. But I believe it's not actually 100% clear yet. So I thought, Richard, could you actually provide a bit of information for us, please?
Yeah, Richard Morgan, Education Business Manager, for those who don't know me. Just Kevin, the issue is sort of split into two parts. One is that when a child is registered for free school meals, the school will get additional resources through the school funding formula in order to pay for free school meals. So they will get the money to buy the meals on a daily basis. What the new regime in terms of free school meals entitlement is bringing into those pupils who are eligible now through universal credit, rather than the current system of free school meals entitlement,
those pupils will not be getting the pupil premium on top. That's what the DFE have currently stated. However, what is unclear is that when we get to September 26, when those pupils who are now eligible under universal credit, there is also an issue in relation to transitional protection for those pupils who were entitled under the old system who may no longer be entitled. So there are separate specific issues. And what the DFE haven't yet done is issue guidance on exactly how those will interact with each other. Because it could be that you may find that some schools, because their pupils are now eligible under universal credit, will get more money than they currently are getting, which is good news, but it could be that they could actually get less money than they're currently getting. And it is very difficult to assess that until you know exactly the split of pupils who are entitled under universal credit or continue to be entitled under the old free school meal system. And that's why it is difficult. But the DFE have, at this point, but only in press notices, indicated that the pupils who are eligible under universal credit will not be entitled to pupil premium allocation. But they haven't issued that as part of a guidance paper or a grant notification guidance.
So the actual resources they're receiving, though, through the additional resources through the NFF for school meal, to pay for school meals, to pay for them, that still is a shortfall, according to many schools?
There was an article on the BBC only the other day about schools who are struggling to provide meals for pupils for the current going rate. I'm not exactly 100% sure, but it's around £2.58 per pupil per day, where most of the schools were suggesting that their meals are costing them well over £3 per day. And I think that is an issue that the, should we say, schools and local authorities and the general community have actually raised with the DFE on several occasions. I think schools have highlighted this, in particular where schools have had to change suppliers because suppliers have simply stopped delivering because they can't do it for the contracted rate. And I think that is an issue that schools will be having to address within their school budgets. Shall I move on to the other two questions? The issue around multi-academy trusts making bids. Don't forget, we actually did enter into a contract via the DFE for the multi-academy trust to run Culverhay. So I don't think that actually is a relevant question that we can answer unless Chris can help me a bit on that.
No, I mean, the multi-academy trusts which have been nominated to deliver and run the schools, which are part of the free school programmes, are equally in no further knowledge than we have in relation to what's going to happen around those free schools. It's incredibly frustrating. I don't know, I can't speak for other schools which have either gone through the presumption route where the local authority has put forward the request for a free school, or in the mainstream, in which case I believe multi-academy trusts can nominate a free school. They can put forward that request. I think that's the bit you're referring to, Kevin. I wouldn't be able to say whether they're being more successful in their applications being taken further forward. I do know, I think there's about 100 and odd free schools at this moment in time who are froze, like us, waiting to know what the outcome is of whether they will proceed. My understanding is that all projects, free school projects that didn't currently, if you like, haven't broken ground in terms of build and start, have all been frozen. So I can't answer that. It's incredibly frustrating. It's over 2 years now since we had the announcement that we'd won those two bids, and it was so exciting. And we find ourselves in this position now where we're not. The safety valve team want us to come up with a plan that would mitigate against those schools not happening. That is a condition of us coming back into the safety valve. It's very hard to think about what that might look like in an absence of policy. So if there is going to be a change to the policy which says actually more children with SEND needs can be included in mainstream school through the provision of units or resource spaces, which appears to be some of the stuff that you read in the media, then it's hard to make that work when there isn't a policy around it. And I think that could take a significant amount of time to shift in terms of culture around schools and implementing the policy. So it's difficult to work with that, but it's a bit of a rock and a hard place. The DFE is saying you must come up with a mitigation around that to go back into the safety valve plan. And our timescale is Wednesday. We can do anything, ultimately, in relation to that. You know, we can write this and write that and say we'll do this and we'll do that in terms of the policy. How that translates in to what the government actually wants to do in the future is going to be very, very hard to do. It could be all, you know, it could all be in just about waiting, and it could be that we've still got those schools, but it's not knowing, which is frustrating at this moment in time. And I don't think it matters if we would be if we were a trust or a local authority. In my mind, I don't see that as a barrier.
Thank you. I suspect government would quite like us to stop asking for more money.
And the third part about putting additional funding in, can I just remind the committee that the whole scheme was based around the site being cleared, and there's a need, because it's a sloping site, to build retaining walls and things like that. And we have said to the DFE we would even be prepared to consider doing the outline design so that we could move ahead much quicker. So at the moment, it's just the instruction is still there that we're going to clear the site until we hear a little bit more from the DFE. In terms of us putting capital into a school scheme, I'm not aware of any scenario where that would be either achievable, but would achieve pushing that up the priority list. I'm looking at you, Richard.
Sorry, I'm unclear as to whether there's any opportunity to do that either.
I'll take that away and ask the question. Kevin.
Thank you. Chair, just a quick comment on what Chris said was just to say, Chris, if you have a great relationship with the MATs in Baines through the School Standards Board and stuff, and I suppose to try and use the fact that Baines is now basically academised unitary authority, whether that would bring any further weight with the DFE from the other angle, if they all signed up and supported to say, yeah, I'm just clutching at straws, but I'm just putting it out there.
Thank you. I don't know if you needed to respond to that at all, Paul. I suspect you don't need to. Okay, right. In that case, I will ask Leslie to come forward with her questions.
Thank you. I've got about three, I think. I just wanted to link back to the trailblazers and what was said by Claire and Laura.
Leslie, can you just speak a little louder? It's only because they've got all the fans
Sorry,
going.
is that better? Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to link back to the trailblazers and some of the information that was coming out from Claire and Laura, where they were saying, you know, we're picking up young people with mental health issues and we're picking up neurodivergent people, and we keep seeing this, don't we? Sort of everything we're looking at, we're seeing these numbers increasing. And if we look at the school attendance and exclusions, we did have a report last year, following the one that came in October, which looked at children as preschool meals and exclusions, so they were quite interesting figures. But on that itself, that report in October, can we see a bit more on one, what are the issues around it? Because we've got this data, you know, we've got exclusions, we've got the number of black, Asian, minority ethnic children that are being excluded, which seems quite high compared with the demographics we've got in Bath and North East Somerset. But also, can we then be seeing something around the initiatives that we're doing to try and change things? And in particular, I'm thinking about the St John's work. I think it's called Learning First, or Learning and Listening, something like that. And this is work that is working with, I think it's preschool children, to look at language development, to try and reduce some of those educational gaps, and in particular to do something before they get into school and they're trying to get an HCP, which seems to be becoming exceedingly difficult. The other thing I wanted to ask about is this implementation of Families First. I'm not clear what it is. Did we see this before? And also, where's the equality impact assessment for it? Who are we talking about? What is it going to do? Etc. etc. Thank you.
Was that 3 questions?
I think it was 3-ish.
Yeah. I think what I'll do is, just to reassure you, I'll pick up the issue with Claire to make sure we're picking up the BME type of issues. We had a really quite uncomfortable conversation with St John's last week because they're having to rethink their funding and their strategy moving forward. But they openly did admit that Language for Life is a really, really successful scheme. So at the moment, that's up in the air a little bit, but they're talking to us, which is really important, I think, moving forward. And the implementation of Families First, I think we did do a report last time about the implications. It's something that is developing as we go through. And of course, earlier on, we picked up the issue with the chair around early intervention and Families First, because it's a completely different approach to how you're actually dealing with children. And it's really important that you actually use your social workers perhaps in a different way moving forward. Because if you've got an integrated front line, then you can actually then use your social workers in a more effective way working. In terms of what you want, I'm not quite certain how we could in actual fact answer that question, whether you can help me on that, Chris.
No problem. Yeah, Paul's covered quite a lot of that, and Councillor Mansell's picked up on some really connected points, I think, from information we brought before this panel before. So just picking up the first bit around exclusions, we can certainly add more in the October report about the work that we're doing to reduce exclusions. The data will be there, which will show that we have an overrepresentation of children being suspended from school with free school meals and from black and ethnic backgrounds. But we can certainly talk about the work we're doing in that space. We have reduced our permanent exclusions for the last 2 years. I think it'll be about the same this year as it was last year, but we brought it down below regional averages, which is really positive. So Sarah Gunner leads on that work, so we'll bring that back and we can provide some more information on that. The project you're thinking about with St John's is Language for Life, which we're incredibly positive about in the local authority. We think it's got a real strong evidence base. We think it's repeatable, so we think we can keep delivering it to do that. And it's something that St John's are really positive about as well. So I think that could be something the local authority can deliver some real legacy on. And when he looked at our data around early years, last time you've seen that there is an improvement in the outcomes of those children with free school meals in that area. So that's something that's really positive. Families First, we haven't brought a full report here yet. We've just been putting updates into the member report on the premise that there will be a fuller report once we've made more headway. We shouldn't, I can't underestimate or over-egg that this is huge in terms of these reforms. It's a culmination of a number of reports that have been done, the Jos McAllister report, all the reports that have been done about the future of social work, and it's going to have massive implications to the way that we organise our services in the local authority. The focus is going to be about more around early help. It's going to be looking at how we work more in a systems way with our health colleagues, with our police colleagues, and it's a piece of work that we've got some additional capacity on to help us, and we'll make sure that there's a full report comes soon. I know that Councillor Romero and Councillor Hardman have had the opportunity to hear a bit more than others, but we'll make sure that that's captured in there. And of course, when that report is presented, we'll make sure the quality impact assessments are completed as well.
And when we know more, we will bring that back to this committee to do a proper presentation on it. So I'm sorry it's a little bit up in the air at the moment, but I think they've probably heard today on the news that there might be some additional funding extending that scheme forward. But to be very clear, in professional terms and political terms, we actually do fully support this particular initiative from the government. And I think it's long overdue and very, very welcome. So all we're arguing about is we haven't got enough money to do it, but under those circumstances, it's still moving in the right direction. Does that answer all your questions?
Okay, so I now have a couple of questions I'd like to ask. A couple around the free school meals and the sort of the issues then you have when it's not fully associated anymore with pupil premium, particularly around the point around, I think it's ever 6 free school meals, which was allowed that if a child had, even if it was for one day, had received free school meals, that then they were, the school was entitled for that pupil premium for 6 years. So do you have any sense of how this sort of disentanglement will affect that kind of scheme, or is that a bit too complicated?
The DFE have actually stated quite clearly that the transitional protection that a child would get as part of the current system will come to an end in September 2026. Originally, they said that that transitional protection was going to end in 2025, but they pushed that forward 1 year to hopefully to coincide with the universal credit rollout. So what we know at this point in time is that the DFE intend on September 26 to expand those children who are eligible for free school meals to everybody in universal credit, but at the same time remove the transitional protection that some children would have been entitled to. So, for example, you may have a child who's in, say, currently in year 3 in the primary school. They were, at some point in the previous couple of years, being entitled to free school meals. They will get protection through to the end of the primary sector. That would have happened under the current system. September 26, that transitional protection will end, and that child will no longer be eligible for free school meals because they are currently not entitled, because their parents have now got a job or whatever it is. So the pupil premium that is attracted to those pupils will then stop for some individual schools. So individual children who were getting pupil premium attached to them will stop in September 26. What the DFE haven't done is issue guidance exactly how that is going to work and how it will roll out properly.
So what you're saying, that the ever 6 kind of scheme is sort of going to be discontinued?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, so, and then you were saying that some schools, their free school meal providers, have either had to change or they've had to, you know, there are complications now because of some additional costs, such as around national insurance. Is that true?
Yeah, there's quite a lot of things that are affecting the cost of meals, in particular sort of the staffing costs that sort of go into providing free school meals. Some contractors have, you know, effectively walked away from school meals contracts, you know, as per the, depending on the regulations of the contract itself. And schools are finding it difficult in some circumstances just to simply find contractors to actually deliver meals. And that is a real difficult sort of position for a school.
Okay, and one more question, which is around, I forget who said this, so there was £11 million that has been given, I think, for free schools, or for the creation of free schools. Is that for across the country? That's not for, or is it allocated? Sorry, I sort of didn't write a clear note to myself.
I apologise. When we put in for safety valve, it was originally agreed it would be £19 million, and we've had some funding, and the £11 million was still left in the system because they put it on hold. So it's £11 million that we required to bring our running costs down, which hasn't been actually freed up by the government because they keep coming back and asking. So I think this is 1, 2, third time we've resubmitted the scheme, Chris.
I think so. I'm looking at Richard. He's been there since the beginning, yes, I believe so. And Councillor May is absolutely right. That's the 11 million. It's not capital, it's revenue funding to support the costs of the send.
Thank you. Well, I suppose that, I don't know, do I feel better knowing that it's not for, across the country? It's still in a pot that's allocated for us, but we haven't got it yet because government haven't freed it up. Okay. All right. I think that was all my questions. I think that's all the questions for you, I think. I'm just double checking in case I've got any additional ones that have just occurred to me. Oh, sorry, no, there was one that I wanted to ask, which is about the Baroness Casey report. So we did ask for a report to come to this meeting about CSE, so child sexual exploitation. I think between asking for that and now the Baroness Casey report came out, and I absolutely appreciate that the Baines Community Safety and Safeguarding Partnership has to digest this and learn what they need to do on the back of that, but it would be good to know that they will come forward perhaps at the next meeting to give us a bit more of an update on what they will do based on that particular report.
Yes.
Thank you for that. It's a really, a far-reaching report. There's a lot of recommendations in there around this area. For reassurance, we have an exploitation subgroup of the the Baines Community Safety and Safeguarding Partnership, which reports into the Children's Safeguard Assurance Group, which I currently chair, and we do a lot of work in that space, and we have a lot of, I think, very good working with our health colleagues and our police colleagues in terms of sharing information and data to make sure we're reducing all those risks. We have a dedicated team as well in the local authority around exploitation, and we commission some fantastic projects such as Willow to make sure that we're working to reduce risk in the area. The report that came out, as Baroness Casey's reports often are, is quite hard-hitting in some places. Some of the recommendations are national recommendations, so a little bit out of things that we can agree to, but some of them are local recommendations. Some of them are recommendations for the partnership, but equally some of them are recommendations about the way the police work. So I think really helpfully, Avon and Somerset Police have come forward really quickly and reached out to the four parts of the policing areas and said, this is a person who can lead on the report, this is what we're going to do, nominate the people you want to work with us from their local area, and that's where we've got to. So the police are going to drive that forward in terms of response, and that'll come back into the Children's Safeguard and Assurance Group. We'll make sure that we're reporting that to the exec, and there's no reason why a report can't come back here as well. I'll need to check the timescales with the police mainly around October just to check if that will fit in around there, but I would hope that the future DCS can bring that report to you guys.
Thank you, and absolutely don't expect it to be a absolute, this is all the things we're going to do. It's really to get a sense of, where things are at that particular moment in time. So hopefully we will see something in October. Thank you. Paul and Chris. Paul.
Sorry, did somebody else? I was just going to end my report. If there's more questions.
No.
Oh, so can I
it's just Chris put his hand up as well. So it's you and then Chris.
Right. Thank you. My report actually highlights the fact we had an Ofsted inspection of the local authority children's services. Recently I was talking to a colleague in Swindon who went through a situation with their Ofsted inspection where they went from good to inadequate, and the impact that had not only on the children but also on the staff that worked there and the politics. So this was a major inspection for us, bearing in mind that we had the director who had just left, an assistant director who was about to leave, it was her last week, and we had an interim director who's been added. And I just wanted to say that I've been trying to keep a higher level of impact around working with the department during that transition period. We can't give you the results because it's embargoed until they do a formal report. But I think it's important that I say to you how much I value the way that Lee worked on our behalf that week, and Chris and everybody else, because I saw the tension there was for people, and nobody wants to actually move from good to anything less than good. I would dearly love it go from good to outstanding, but that's something that we will be thinking about in the future. But we will be bringing back a full report. And at the next meeting, we will have Jean Kelly with us as the new director. And then Chris will be going back, in theory, to his Director of Education role moving forward. So it's a transition period for us. It's a worrying time, but the way that people have actually pulled together has been a real pleasure, and I won't say shock, but it's been really nice. And I think it'd be nice for the committee just to say to me to thank everybody for the way they've actually dealt with that moving forward. Thank you, Chair.
Well, I will take that opportunity then to say thank you to everybody who took part in that Ofsted review. And yes, obviously, I expect we will look forward to receiving that report in October. It must be released by then.
Yes. We were hoping it would have been about the time of this committee, but we had a peer review carried out last week, which has then sort of disrupted the timescale. So I'm sorry, I would like to have brought it back at this meeting.
Okay, all right. Well, I think we'll move on now. We might move on, but Chris wants to have another word.
Very briefly, 5th of August, the publication date for the current report, so definitely ready for October. And I just wanted to thank Damien and Richard for their work on auto-enrolment. When this panel brought up the need for Baines to do this, they both just got on with it and grasped it enthusiastically as well. And just to reassure, we're on track for the September delivery, as we said as well. So just a note of thanks for the teams working on this.
Yeah, and I echo that, but I'm not sure that these are faces of enthusiasm, but maybe they are. Yes, thank you very much, and thank you for attending this meeting too. And we look forward to seeing you again when we have another update on the feasible meals. Okay. Thank you. So, right, now I'm aware that Val and Laura have sat quite patiently in, I guess, a room that I'm not sure what the temperature is, but it's certainly quite warm in here, isn't it? Yes. So what I'll do then is, if we now move on to the Integrated Care Board's report, to save you having to be here longer than you really need to, what I'll say is, can we take your report and Val's presentation as sort of having been given, and then we can then, unless there's anything in particular that is new to this, maybe we could just move straight on to questions.
Very happy to do that. Thank you, Chair.
That's okay. So, panel, we are now on item 10, which, as I said, was the ICB report. Perhaps before we start, maybe Laura and Val could just introduce themselves, and then we can ask questions.
Of course. Hello everyone, I'm Laura Ambler, I'm Director of Place for Baines from the Baines, Swindon and Wiltshire Integrated Care Board.
And good morning everyone, my name is Val Grace and I'm the Regional Director with HCIG Care Group.
So who would like to kick us off? Okay, Liz.
I've just got a couple of questions because I know the panel have other questions as well. We're very concerned about this large cluster arrangement, and I think that's come up time and time again. And in the report you mentioned that you're going to work with the cluster but remaining focused on day-to-day care. And we just wondered, how is this going to happen?
Thank you, Councillor Harding. So this is in relation to clearly the changes from NHS England, and as we know, integrated care boards were directed to reduce their running costs, and to look at that in the most sustainable way, there was a requirement for us to look at clustering. So we are, what I can add is that since we last spoke, if you remember, we were exploring clustering options and we needed those to be signed off. I can confirm that we have formally been recognised as a cluster, so we are now formally working together with Dorset and Somerset and BSW as well. So the focus clearly is on maintaining day-to-day operations, and in fact since the guidance, so the panel might remember, I spoke about an ICB blueprint that came out which gave an indication of the types of functions we might want to look at. Since then, for example, there's been further clarification that there'll be expectations for current ICBs to be responsible for winter moving forward. So, for example, that's the sort of thing that has come more recently. So we have a little bit of clarification on what that means in terms of operational day-to-day, focusing on making sure that we maintain safe and effective service and delivery. However, you'll remember, we spoke about this last time, the expectation is still there that ICBs in those clusters need to now look at their operating model and now need to come up with proposals of how they will reduce running costs, with the expectation that we look to do that by the end of Q3, so that that can be implemented from 1st of April next year moving forward. The other issue I think that we touched on last time is that clearly to make any formal changes in governance terms would require legislation. So we are looking at these clustering arrangements, it's anticipated, over the next couple of years up to 2027 before anything like a formal merger or anything like that could take place. However, what that means in terms of how we organise ourselves and how we work is what we're working through at the moment. So I appreciate that's not a full answer, it's still being worked through, but the key takeaway is that that operating model is being looked at to understand what will be done at cluster and what does that mean in terms of current arrangements moving forward.
Thank you. So obviously we'll receive an update from at every panel meeting from now onwards, I would think. Thank you. Ask a couple more. Residents have said to me that in the IUH, the appointment system is very much unilateral, that patients are getting appointments for the same day and that the appointment system, the different departments aren't speaking to each other. And I just wondered, is there anything that could be done about that?
I'll take that one away, Councillor Harding. If you've got any further information, if you could provide that to me offline, and then obviously we can explore that and try and understand the issues there. But yeah, we'll certainly look into that.
And we're not going on to the transformational side yet, or can we?
Shall we sit with the ICB first, and
Yeah.
then we'll do the transformation?
Okay, I just wondered about health passports. Have we got any figures for those using health passports and any needs that are being spotted?
I don't have them with me today, but I know that we do have those breakdowns, so I will bring that back to a future meeting. We also have some really fantastic case studies, actually, in terms of how they've changed outcomes, particularly with those with learning disability and or autism. So, if I may, I'll bring that back as a future item, or if you prefer in between meetings, we can email the information. If you let me know which is your preference, we'll make that happen.
Barrett.
I want to echo what my colleague has said on both points. I think we should address the elephant in the room. We're often sold that this is the best way forward. The elephant in the room is we're doing the bigger clustering because we're trying to save money. So say it, rather than say to us, oh, no, this is really the best way forward. I'm old enough to have seen it all, from the primary cares, to the primary care trusts, to the regional authorities, to the local, we've had the big, and then the small, and the small, and then the big. And in between, and I know, I'm just having a go at you, but it's not your fault, okay? But you're the messenger, right? And in between, there are lots of compulsory redundancies that take place. And further to those compulsory redundancies, a few months later, they're all re-employed. And then there is a case of, you're trying to save money. So all I'm asking for is, address the elephant in the room, which is this. We're doing this because we think, and it's a think, that we're going to save some money. We may not, but we think it is. And also say it as it is. We have been asked to do it. Because I often feel resentful when, a director of public health or a regional director of public health will give me this, which is, it is in the best interests of the population. We think it is the best. Not really. You've been ordered to do it. So say it as it is. On the second point that my colleague Liz made, I also would like to share with you, and I will share it with you in private, which is the difficulties patients have with regards to their appointments and coordinating their appointments. And it's really difficult when telephones are not answered, when appointments are sent at the last minute, and then when you want to reschedule that appointment, it is ever so difficult. And there's definitely a lack of coordinated, straightforward, make it easy for the patient who is concerned. So before I leave this room, I'll take your details and I'll write to you with some examples. Thanks very much. And I really don't mean to have a go at you. It's just, I feel...
It's absolutely fine. It's taken in the spirit in which I think it was intended. You're speaking with passion. And just to clarify, I think for the panel previously, we have been clear it was a directive, so you're spot on, you're absolutely right. I think we've also been clear that there's an expectation on costs. So that was originally £18.76 per head of population. It's now 19. But I think we all recognise that will mean significant changes. And it does mean significant redundancies, you're right. However, there is no national scheme for that at the moment. There is no national confirmation of that at the moment. So we work in the parameters that we have. But yeah, I completely understand the spirit that it was delivered. On the access point, I wonder if we might touch on that when we come on to the ICBC programme, because actually that integration, that seamless way in which patients can access and not have to deal with multiple different access routes and appointments is the very essence of why we're looking at some of the ICBC. So could we just...
now, or do you want to...
I still want the examples, but if we could cover off some of it now, that would be great.
And that might also help with Liz's question earlier as well.
Yeah, so one of the commitments from the ICBC and delivering the new model of service and fits really nicely with the 10-year plan is that left shift. And when we're talking about left shift, we're talking about left shift into digital for those that are digitally enabled, left shift into prevention and supporting people to access and manage their own care, but also left shift into building community resources. So as part of our commitment with the new contract, we are aiming to have a digital front door by the end of the first year, a BSW care coordination centre where you can talk to actual people, and a real focus on neighbourhood teams and neighbourhood health, which is a word that is used a lot within the 10-year plan. What we mean by that is delivering integrated neighbourhood teams with our primary care colleagues, with our community and voluntary sector around neighbourhoods. And that, again, is the kind of national direction. In relation to coordinating appointments, we are committed to developing our digital front door so that people can manage their appointments, if they're able to do that digitally, to coordinate around what meets their requirements. That doesn't, what we're also trying to do is increase integration and functionality with the IUH, but I'm particularly talking about community appointments at this stage, and I recognise that the question might be related more to the IUH. But I think as we develop our digital functionality, everything we do and the national direction as far as the NHS plan is around improving functionality and integration with wider systems and partners. It is a journey that we're on in relation to that. But also through a care coordination centre around talking to individuals, hopefully that will help with also people managing appointments as well, and local access.
I just want to say, all well and good, what tends to happen is you will give us all these reassurances that there is a digital front door and then there is other doors for people who can't manage. And then suddenly the people who can't manage, that service just quietly slips away. It's always a need. I have, my elderly residents and not so elderly residents who just find the digital door difficult. Yeah. And I've repeatedly found that there are reassurances that we have the digital door and we will have the direct person-to-person thing. And then what tends to happen is down the line that telephone just doesn't get answered.
So I mean, I'm sat here committing to the journey that we're on, and in the pack you will see our kind of care model, which is very much a step care model. That BSW care coordination is an absolute must that we will deliver, partly as much for the service user, importantly, but it also is about coordinating our care and our services behind the scenes as well. You can't deliver that with just a digital front door for the service user or for our own benefits. So, what we are embedding within the workforce design of that care coordination centre is very much what we call care navigators. And we have care navigators, we've piloted that in a number of areas. These are not clinicians, they're care navigators who understand the community, but can also escalate to a clinician if that urgent response is required as well. So I'll have to come back and reassure you and convince with the evidence going forward, but that is our model.
Sorry, Chair. One last question.
You may have one last question.
Sorry, please. Will there be some independent audit to reassure us that actually a non-digital door also works?
Yeah. So our assurance and governance will go through to our commissioners, and we have the ICB are our lead commissioner, but they're also associate commissioners with the three councils, Somerset ICB, Dorset and Hampshire ICB as well. So our assurance process will be through to our commissioners, but equally we can come back through scrutiny and report as well on a regular basis.
Okay, thank you. Are your questions linked to this, David? Were your questions linked specifically to this? In that case, I will go to Michael and then Leslie, and then you.
I have a couple of questions. I'll try and go through them slowly. The first one, I'm interested in the passport and actually health passport, and actually how you are engaging with minority communities. I know particularly when I did some work for an organisation called BEMSCO, and we were trying to engage with the minority communities around COVID. It was actually very difficult to kind of connect with those people. So I know you highlighted in the report that Julian House is someone that you've been dealing with, but there's lots of other organisations, and also what you would define as being a minority community. So that was one of my first questions, because I know it is a challenge. I mean, we achieved some good results, but actually it took about 6 months of a lot of work just to engage with the minority community that BEMSCO work with. Linked with that, again, how you engage with 40-year-olds around health checks. What are the methodology that you would use for that, and how effective has it been? And then, in terms of your A&E survey, the figures you've got there about the number of patients that have been to the sort of RUH, Great Western and Salisbury, how does those figures compare to previous years? So we've just got a figure in isolation by itself. So I'm just interested in knowing how that compares to sort of, let's say, the last couple of years, if you've got that data. And then the last point I just wanted to raise, which is, again, raising concerns about the digital door for this wonderful new system we're going to have now. I know that I deal with lots of elderly people that don't use the internet. It's been emphasised over and over again. I spoke recently to a Baines resident who is waiting for a hip operation. She was then notified by St Martin's Hospital about her appointment, and they gave her two options. One, they could send it by letter, and it would take 6 weeks to arrive when the next appointment came up, or they could download the app, the NHS app. Now, this person doesn't really know even how to turn on a mobile phone, let alone how to download an app, and was completely confused by it all. So her only option was to wait 6 weeks potentially for something to come by mail, at which point that appointment's probably gone to somebody else. And she's just waiting and waiting, and it's this whole issue of total disregard, or not disregard, but disconnect between people that are on the front line delivering those services and those people that are very, very vulnerable. And I just get very frustrated over and over again that we have an elderly population, and it's not just the elderly population that are disconnected from the internet, but a lot of them are, and not who are disconnected from the system and are just slowly not being considered when these kind of big decisions are being made, which at the end of the day is really a cost-saving exercise. It's not about delivering better care. That's my own personal view, but I'm happy to be challenged on that. But yeah, thank you.
I was wondering if we start backwards with the last point, really, around the digital front door. Would that be helpful, because it's linked, and then I can answer the others?
So, I think the digital front door is really important. It's what people are asking us to put in place. And it's people are asking for that functionality, which is why it's in that NHS 10-year plan. But we absolutely know that that doesn't suit everyone, and that we need to have alternatives. The St Martin's example you've given actually is not us, and I know it's not us because it's an acute service that links to the NHS app. We don't have access to the NHS app yet. So I know it's an IUH service. What I would like to say as well, of course, is that we already have a fully functioning Baines Care Coordination Centre with people to talk on the end of the phone, and we monitor the telephone calls and the responses and how long people wait, and we report against that. So we know that that's a really, really important route for individuals. I wouldn't say it's necessarily all older people either. It's a mix, because there are some very, very competent elderly people who do have digital access and want it as well. So I think what we need to recognise is we need a mixed access, and that is what we will be committed to delivering. And the Baines Care Coordination we will build on. There's learning from that, there's feedback that we've had from the Care Coordination Centre at the end of our last contract that we will be building into the new model going forward.
Thanks, Val. Yeah, I think the key takeaway is the digital front door is one part of that model, but really you need to look at that holistic approach, and it is about wrapping around the individual's needs. And as Val has said rather modestly, I think, in Baines we've had a really good system and care coordination centre, and some of that joint working, and of course that gives us a really firm foundation for moving forward. If I may just come to some of your other points, in terms of the passports, part of the reason for bringing it here, and indeed other forums, is to make sure that we've got that visibility so that people are aware that this is something that can be really helpful. So the idea is that it helps people maybe tell their story once, because we know that's a frustration. It helps people and professionals understand what reasonable adjustments are, and actually how they can be made. Things as simple as just understanding people's likes, dislikes, preferences of communication. So when we talk about, what groups is this targeted at, whilst we have focused a lot on learning disabilities and autism, and indeed on some of those groups such as the voters community and Gypsy and Traveller community, we're saying that actually we recognise this is a template that could be put to use with many other groups. So we're asking through community sector to help us identify those groups. The Community Wellbeing Hub are well versed in it, as are health professionals across health and social care. So that's how we're trying to embed that really as good practice, and we'd welcome your views. So if you think there's particular groups, please, we'd really welcome that. If you could drop me a line on that, that would be brilliant. And then in terms of the health checks, so this was linked to a campaign around a week, I think it was back in June, I don't know that we've got the data on what the metrics were of how successful and how many people we've reached, but I'll take that one back and feed that back if I may. And then again on the A&E survey, what we've tried to do, because that's been running again since June, is just give you a flavour and a breakdown, particularly for figures that are relevant to Baines. I don't think we've ever done a survey of this nature before, so I'm not sure how comparable data will be, but let me have a little look and see what it tells us in terms of key trends, changes, and if that would be helpful.
That answer your questions, Michael? Okay. Leslie, and then David, and then Kevin.
Yes, thank you for the report. I'd like to pick up on the ICB report, and then I'll come to the HCRG one afterwards. So it's good to see that the new centre is almost finished out in Trowbridge. Can you give us a little bit more information about what's contained within it? I mean, does it have beds there, for example, or is it just something that you go into and come out of on the same day? On the health checks, it would be really good to see some figures on the take-up for Bath and North East Somerset. I know it's a tricky subject with men. I've just been at our Unite the Union conference, and we had not one but two motions actually on men's health, which is really unusual. But there was a fantastic debate that lasted about an hour on all the different issues, on the different concerns, and the way forward that we can pick up from a trade union point of view. But it'd be good to see what's coming out of this one locally. Health passports, again, I was involved in those for the Gypsy Roma Traveller community some time ago in Bristol, so it's good to see it's being used here, and again, at some point, it'd be good to see some of the information coming out on that. And on the emergency department survey, I did ask last time that that picks up on the equality monitoring within that as well. And it would be good to see, and we'll welcome the outcomes of that when it's available. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those questions. So, as we've said, we will look at the take-up rates for those men's health checks. In terms of the A&E survey, my understanding is that the questions were asked around equality information, equality and inclusion information. It all depends on whether or not individuals choose to answer that, as we know. So again, we'll have a look at that information and see what that tells us or what we can portray from that. In terms of Trowbridge, so this is a reminder that some of those facilities that are currently within the community hospital will be moving to the new centre. So things like the X-ray and the MIU, not bedded to capacity. So that is, I think, the update that I can give on that. I think that was all of the points raised. Did I miss one? Sorry. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And so about the sort of transformation part, I think we're coming to that later as well. Anyway, so who else was on my list? David and then Kevin. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got two questions for Val and two for Laura. They both just go back to previous panel meetings, discussions. So HCRG have done a lot of work with their bid and the contracting and taken over services since 1st of April. And one of the ideas was that there would be a levelling out of resources across the patch. So have you yet worked out what services and Baines will see a reduction in staffing, for instance, and what will see an increase in staffing?
Yeah, part of the bid and procurement was around harmonisation of services across BSW, and this is in relation, if we think about harmonisation as really an individual with a particular health need is able to access the same level of the same level of service across BSW. And what we have inherited, I can't compete with that. What we've clearly inherited is still some disharmonisation of services based on legacy commissioning by, I would say, probably even back to CCG, and maybe even PCT times. So the approach that we're taking is to focus on a care pathway approach rather than a service or condition approach. And that's explained in a little bit more detail around our methodology. At the moment, we have just completed what we're calling discovery phase for a number of key care pathways, including things like urgent care, which includes hospital at home, a number of the children's pathways and a lot of the LDAN pathways, autism and ADHD diagnostic pathways, for example. That discovery phase has been very internally focused, looking at data and policy, procedure, access, etc., etc. As we go into more of the define and design stage, we will be sharing those findings and working with our key stakeholders and our public to start kind of testing out what we have found. So I guess the answer at the moment is no, I can't say what's going to level up at this stage. We do already know that there are some services in some areas that have a very different delivery model, and we want to build on what that best practice is. So I'll give you an example in Baines. We know that our respiratory service, our impact service, is a really high-level service, and we would want to be looking at that best practice and implementing that across the BSW space, because it really supports people within the community and is the way forward if you think about the NHS 10-year plan. How do we get there? Well, some of it might be within the first 2 years with transformation and efficiencies. The other bit of work I think we will be doing with our commissioners is very much evidencing what does that mean for our patients and our service users, and how does it reduce admissions into hospital, so we can further work with our colleagues and our commissioners around that left shift and improving community resource. So I don't think that fully answers your question, because I don't have all the detail yet till we deliver our transformation. But as we go through the next 2 years, we can bring more examples back to you.
Thank you. How long is the contract for, by the way?
How long is
the contract? Sorry? How long is the contract for?
The contract is 7 plus 2 years.
Okay, thanks. As I recall from your last time you came here, you said that the outcomes, this was an outcome-based contract and delivery, and you were come back to us with what those long-term outcomes were and what milestones there would be for progression along the lines of, you know, achieving your outcomes.
Yeah, so yes, this is really quite an exciting, quite different contract, in that over the life of the contract we need to be reporting against outcomes. This is the so what, so it's not just about digit counting and outputs, it's actually outcomes. We also have outputs though, or KPIs, so you know, activity levels, waiting times, all the normal things that you would expect in any contract. The way we're working on the outcomes is very much through the transformation. So it is, again, it's part of our transformation, it's part of our development journey to actually evidence with the ICB those improving outcomes. Some of them will be longer term in relation to reducing admissions at the front door, capturing additional activity and community, increasing community resources. Some of it is around improving, for example, outcomes around life expectancy between different social groups within the community. So over this first year, we are working with the ICP on actually the outcomes that we need to measure, and then we will be developing our systems to actually report on them. So again, we can come back in the longer term.
To add to that, if it helps clarify, so in the slide pack, what you've got is the 9 priorities that we had in our commissioning intentions, and underneath those you can see the types of things that we described in the outcomes framework. So hopefully that gives you a flavour of what we're talking about when we're talking about outcomes. And then as you go through the slide deck, what's happened is that those priorities have been mapped onto a programme in terms of how we would take that forward, what the transformation strands, the work streams would look like, aligned to those 9 priorities. So hopefully you can see how we start to step through how, you know, what we said were the commissioning intentions and then how that gets co-developed and delivered. But we will make sure that you've got the outcomes framework. I'm sure we can circulate that offline. It's quite a comprehensive document. We may have circulated it some time ago, so let me send it again and make sure everyone's got that.
Thank you, Laura. I'm sure that will be appreciated.
I don't know if you've yet had a chance with the changes to the ICB cluster to look at referral patterns from GPs and things. It just wanted to remind you that I'd asked whether GP practices that currently are able to refer to RUH or Bristol will still be able to refer to Bristol. And going back to our previous discussion on slowdown of elective referrals, I was just wondering if which services will be rationed and how.
Yeah, thank you for those two questions. So on the referral patterns, I think as we touched on last time, those referral patterns, so GPs being able to refer into Bristol or RUH or indeed whatever is the most appropriate place anywhere, cross-boundary, that would still remain. So that is confirmation. In terms of the elective referrals, thank you for raising that last time. I did try to find that HSJ article just to try and understand the angle that was coming through. I wonder if it was, I couldn't find it by the way, so if you had further information I'd welcome that. I wonder if it was referring to the changes around the elective recovery cap that were referred to. What we've suggested is that we bring a report back on our elective recovery plans and that we just set out what that might look like to a future committee meeting. And I think we were looking at the next one, which was September. So we'll bring that forward and perhaps I can link in with you and just make sure it covers the content that you were hoping for.
Great, thank you. I'll email that to you.
And I think your offer to run it by David first, I think would be really helpful. Yeah. Kevin, I'm sorry, I think I might have missed you earlier, but you're on my list now.
I just don't know how, Chair. Sorry. Laura, bless you. Couple of things. The new integrated care centre in Trowbridge, and it's always great to hear about new buildings, new resources that the NHS has. Fantastic. It did raise the question in my mind, particularly in the current climate of heat waves and things, about the rest of the NHS estate under your care and what sort of state the rest of the buildings and estate is in, and what things are being done maybe to be climate proof at this time. Then there's a couple of questions I have around the community-based contract. It mentions that charities are involved, and I just again would like to know how that's being coordinated and commissioned and which charities they might be. The digital service appears to be central to everything that's been happening, but then after Marks and Spencers and Co-op, I just wondered what safeguards are being put in place to make sure that it doesn't close as soon as it's open. That's about it for the moment, because the other bit I think is being done with. You already answered the other question about the Chief Nursing Officer who is setting targets and things, but thank you.
Thank you, Kevin, for those questions. So, in terms of the state of buildings and estates, I think it's fair to say that it's very varied and mixed across our patch, and obviously we have got significant areas of buildings that are in a state of disrepair and would need significant maintenance. So there are significant challenges. I don't think we're unique in that. I think that is something nationally that we see, particularly across primary care, particularly across some of our community and acute buildings. So those significant challenges, we have a capital programme which we have to prioritise. As always, and again I think not unique to us and indeed not unique to the NHS, that capital programme is never enough and doesn't cover everything that's required. So we are going to have to look at how we manage all of that moving forward in a partnership way And obviously you'll have seen in the 10-year plan that it speaks to that. It talks to thinking about how we best make use of our assets, how we are looking at co-locating, how we are looking at thinking about hubs in a different way. Notwithstanding that, clearly we still have a responsibility to make sure that we prioritise whatever limited funding that we get, and sometimes it's not the capital that's the issue, as we know it's the revenue that can be the problem, that we do that in the best possible way. I guess from a policy and strategic perspective, we've got a sustainable green plan, as many have. So again, trying to set expectations of the types of things that we can do. And often that is a lot harder in retrofit terms, as we know, than it is in new build terms, but the sorts of things that we can do, whether that's for the building fabrics themselves or indeed ways of working, supplies that we use, how we best do that, and indeed how our staff get to and from different places as well. So that's the sort of things that we're looking at there. Did you want me to come on to the partnership approach around City, or did you want to? Shall I pick up and start? Yeah. And then...
Can you put your microphone
Sorry.
on?
I think it is really difficult because a lot of our buildings are old and difficult, and they don't meet the environmental standards we'd want. But as part of the ICBC, we're going to be working closely with the ICB and with our partners, because this is also about one public estate, isn't it? It's about how we use all our public estate differently. So by the end of year 2, we'll have more of a direction of travel around estate as well. In relation to voluntary sector and engagement, we have recruited a head of partnership and engagement and a deputy. Some of you will know Phil Waters, who's very well known within the Baines space. He's our head of partnership and engagement. His background is totally voluntary sector. He has not one concentric ring of NHS within him, which is actually our plan. That was actually a very considered approach to our recruitment. And he and Amanda Davies are very much linking with our communities, with our voluntary sector and with our public to develop an engagement strategy. Within Baines, we're already very well known, so I can assure you we're very linked into 3SG, working really closely with the Community Wellbeing Hub, with our wellness partner as well. But clearly there are some communities as well that actually we need to reach out to that aren't linked into voluntary sector as well. But very much building that strategy around the voluntary sector. And we have subcontracted elements of services to the voluntary sector. We are committed to increasing that by the end of year 2 as well, because we recognise the importance of our voluntary sector in supporting us to deliver these health pathways going forward. Just going back to digital and security, I mean, it is a challenge, let's face it. So we are an NHS provider, we have an NHS standard contract, and we have to sign up and deliver all the cyber security that any a public sector body has to deliver, and we have to report against that. I cannot say that that will not be criminally attacked, but we constantly review and manage and provide that scrutiny and assurance. And that heightened security, I know, is being managed centrally by police central cyber security as well. So, yeah, we have against this contract to manage that cyber security and everything that any other provider needs to do. I think that was the 3 questions. Yeah.
I'm aware that we slightly skipped over the transformation part. We have also spoken about it too, so I'll just check if there's any panel members who want to speak specifically about that. Liz does.
Thank you, and thank you for the time. Just to say, Val, you must have had the ear of our current government, because your 9 projects absolutely reflect the 10-year NHS plan. And but well done, you've linked it in, and so that's a really good thing. But down to the nitty-gritty, 2 questions I'd like to ask. You said there's a commitment to engage councillors, really good to hear that. So how will you do that, and when will it happen? And my second question would be, have you coordinated all your transformation plan with the public health team? Public health team. Thank you. 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 Thank you.
Yeah, so I think, again, one of the reasons for coming here today is to understand what would work for you best as Health and Overview Scrutiny Committee, to think about how we work with you moving forward. I think it's fair to say that in terms of the governance that's set up, that has been built in, and you'll see in the slides that Val and colleagues have provided, there's an expectation that as we go through some of that pathway development that we're looking at, that we would engage, and you've heard Phil is certainly a key part of that, but of course other project leads as well. So just thinking about the format and how you'd want that reported here would be really helpful. In terms of the governance, obviously every stage of our governance has got local authority representation, as you know, and that includes Directors of Public Health and indeed Suzanne Westhead on the Collaborative Oversight Forum as a chair of that. So hopefully the linkages are there. I think from our perspective it's just trying to understand your expectations and how we might make sure that we give updates that are relevant, timely, and help you to help us with that engagement. So I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add, Val.
No, just to add around the public health, absolutely linked in to Directors of Public Health through a variety of routes, formal governance routes, through our contract assurance. There are BSW and BAME's inequalities, prevention and population health groups that we're linked into. And actually I meet monthly with Becky Reynolds as well, so very, very key to that prevention agenda. Yeah. Thank you. Do I have any more questions on this part of the agenda? Okay. In that case then, I've got a couple of questions. Which are not, firstly, picking up on the point you made just now, Laura, you mentioned a group, and I've probably written it down slightly wrong, which is basically like an overview group. And I wondered whether or not that was, in essence, like almost like an internal scrutiny panel, and whether or not that was something that we ought to be somehow more aware of in the work that we do here as a scrutiny panel.
Yeah, so I think as part of our governance, we had through the procurement process a joint board, as you might remember, a programme board that had all of those co-commissioners that Val spoke to. So whilst we might be the lead commissioner, clearly this is co-commissioned with each of the local authorities and indeed Somerset ICB as well. So we have a collaborative oversight forum, which is the natural progression of that programme board that took us through the procurement process. That is now there to make sure that, as it says on the tin, we have collaborative oversight of the contract and of the delivery of services as we move forward. So that's a joint representative forum in which we can discuss some of those issues. From that forum, we may well identify when we think it's appropriate, for example, to bring things through each of the scrutiny panels, or indeed where we might think and get advice from the different officers that sit on that forum, actually here are some different opportunities for us to think about how we might work together moving forward, or who we might need to engage with at any one time. So hopefully that helps explain a bit. It's not an internal scrutiny, it's more of a functional working part of the governance, but certainly something that can help us identify what we might want to bring here.
Thank you, Laura. And then just talking about bodies that had oversight over the work of health in general. I think we'll all be aware that Health Watch has or is being discontinued. So is there plans to replace it with another body that will have the patient's voice at its heart?
Yeah, so again, this is another directive that we've learnt of recently nationally. Alongside NHSE, Department of Health and Social Care and ICB changes, there was a communication that Health Watch and also some of the patient forum groups would no longer be taken forward. Again, we don't have clear timescales for that. We also don't have clarity on who would provide that function, where might that transfer to. I think it is recognised it is an important function, and indeed I think both Secretary of State and Chief Exec of NHSE have been really clear that, you know, we need to make sure that we have trust in our NHS, and that means we need to hear directly from our patients. But I can understand that therefore that feels a little bit converse to not having Healthwatch. In the meantime, again, I have to say that Healthwatch have been at all of our boards, so they were at the Health and Wellbeing board, they continue to come along to the Integrated Care Alliance, and as we've seen with others, continue to maintain that professional commitment to continue to working with people that they're working with right now, you know, and that they have those relationships with. So I think it's a case of us working again to wait and see how that pans out, and to work jointly together to mitigate how we make sure that we support people going through that time, and I mean the individuals that they're working with, as well as the staff.
And I think for us it would be useful to know what government's thoughts are about a replacement structure, or what ICB's thoughts are about a replacement structure, because if it's going to be the same but just called something different, that feels very unhelpful. I'm not sure that's something you need to comment on, but I'm sure you would agree. And then finally, my question, which just picks up a point that Val made around that you don't have access to the NHS app, and there feels, not currently, but you will do. And so actually all of these health services will be properly linked, and we won't then have to access something through a different, you know, app or whatever, or if we are actually digitally able.
Yes, so that is absolutely the aim, and I think it's fair to say, which is what's so exciting around the 10-year plan, and yes, I think we're ahead of the game with this bid and procurement process in the ICBC, is there has been not the same investment in the community services as there has been in acute services. So this is about community services catching up, I suppose, and I think we're a bit ahead of the game in BSW with this contract.
And then just reiterating the point Michael made, that don't make your sort of access only digital. Remember, people often need people.
I totally, and I've heard that message, but I also want to be very clear that that's not the direction of travel we're going. Very much our care coordination will be a people care coordination centre. Yeah.
Well, don't you worry, we will definitely be checking up on you. Well, thank you very much, Val and Laura. My apologies that I don't think we've got any cooler, did it? It just got hotter and hotter. Right, we now move on to the next item, which I think is going to be the minutes from the 16th of June. Do I have anything that is incorrect to on these minutes, or can we take them as pretty much a good rendition or good reproduction of that meeting? Okay, all right, everybody okay? Fantastic. Then we move on to the panel's work plan. I know we've mentioned a number of reports that we would like. Sorry, Leslie, I didn't see your hand, so I don't know what item you were asking
Sorry,
about.
no, I just missed it on the report on the HCRG. We heard originally that there wasn't equality impact assessment. This document says there is. It doesn't actually tell us anything. It says it's publicly available, but I can't see where it's available. We haven't had a copy. It's not in the presentation, and I can't see it online.
So I think in the report we refer to the fact that there was an equality impact assessment as we went through the procurement process, and that there is now, obviously, as we have HCRG in place, an equality impact assessment that clearly HCRG co-own with us really to take forward, so we can make those both available to you. I think what we highlighted in the report was just a headline of what you might anticipate the equality impact assessment had looked at, and to be fair, I think it speaks to essentially the risk of maintaining and landing safe services alongside transformation. And I think, as you can also see in the report, since the 100-day plan, that actually those risks haven't materialised, and so I think we are satisfied on that front and assured. I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add, Val.
I think that's probably a good summary, unless Leslie's got any other queries around that.
I'll just sort of
I'd like to
preempt
see
what
it,
Leslie was going to say. I think actually for our benefit, it's always useful to have these EQIAs. It's wonderful that you're satisfied, but, you know, I think we need to know that we're satisfied too. Thank you.
And can I just come back on another supplementary? So clearly, I mean, the presentation is about the service, which is fine, but how about the workforce? So I don't see very much on the workforce at all, apart from a move to 7-day working.
Sorry, Leslie. Sorry, we had actually moved on from this item.
I know you have, but sorry, I missed it. I missed where you moved on to that bit. I did say I wanted to come back on the HCRG.
But and that's why I said, is there any more questions? But
sorry, I missed it. I'm just now coming back. So I wanted to ask about
can I just say, because, you know, in the interests of time and everything, perhaps if you could put your questions to Val and to Laura as an email, I think that would be more useful than going back to an item that we've now finished.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so we're now on to the work plan, and perhaps some of the points that Leslie wanted to raise might actually feed into the ICB report that we will get in September. And we also need, there's a response to the CQC report, and what else?
School survey.
And the school survey that I know Kevin has spoken about previously, and Becky Reynolds, I know, is coming to that meeting, so obviously that will be picked up on that as well. So in addition to other items on our agenda, is there anything else that you felt that we've not covered? I know I've spoken about the child sexual exploitation, which we're expecting in October, and would we expect the report on modern day slavery to come then, or could we have that in September? Because again, that's an item that's been outstanding for some time.
And Chair, I think we've mentioned free school meals.
We have mentioned free school meals as well, so yes, so that will form quite a nice amount of work for September/October.
The request for the modern slavery report, can I make a suggestion that is directed to perhaps one of the adult panels? The lead for modern slavery in the council is Fran Jones, works part of the community safety. And
that's why I suggested September, because that would be the adult-focused meeting. Okay. Anything else? I think we're going to pick up long COVID as well, within the context of children being off of school. Kevin?
Sorry, alongside the attainment gap project, something around the feedback from the wider determinants project, the public health, and an update on how they're doing. Also around the ICB, the pharmacy strategy and the dental care bit. I don't think we've had anything back yet, or at least I don't seem to have seen it, around what the criteria were that the public health were using to assess pharmaceutical need. They said they were going to give us the criteria on which they're basing the assessment of whether we've got enough or not, but I haven't seen any, have you?
And I think obviously the September meeting will be timely for most of what you've been asking for, but of course the criteria for the for that needs assessment, I think I don't know when the sort of cut-off for that assessment was to be, but we'll see if we can get that to you before that meeting. All right. Sorry, Paul, you had your hand up.
No, I was just, we also said we were going to pick up in October, I think, the Youth Trailblazer.
We also need something on our St Michael's music project, because it's going to, the money's going to run out in November, so we need a reply. Hopefully, we're all going to see what we can do, but obviously, an idea or a report from Paul or a request from Paul as cabinet member might go down very well with some organisations like St John's. I know, were they saying they weren't going to give as much as they have previously done to various projects, but maybe if Paul could chat with them.
They were very careful, but the implication was that their fundamental role is around adults, and therefore they then got a pot left over, and they're having to decide the priorities for that pot. So my interpretation was that they were getting a little bit difficult around funding, because in terms of investments, their brief has actually reduced quite considerably around properties. So I think it's a question of how much funding they've got.
Okay. Leslie, you had your hand up to add something onto the agenda. Any other work plan items? No? Okay, well obviously if you do think of something in the meantime, then let myself and Kerry know, and we will make note of that. And yes, Kerry says he's going to make sure the aircon's working, so I think he's got like a bag of mechanics tools that he's just going to use in a moment.
Chair, can I also suggest there was discussion around the DFE and Colvay? I think there might be some advantage in the committee asking for DFE to come along and talk about Colvay.
Yes. Well, maybe they could come to our October meeting. Thank you. Will you be inviting them then, Chris?
I'd love to put the request forward. I think that would be a valid one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right. Anything else anybody else wants to mention at this point? So we're getting to the very exciting moment where I'm going to end the meeting. Okay, I've ended it. It's over.